Good evening. May I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order? Councillor Fisher, Councillor Moore, that the special meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater, November 18th, 2024, come to order at 5 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. At this moment in time, I would like to advise the Deputy Mayor Cabral sends his regrets, and the Mayor will be joining us virtually this evening. At this time, I would like to call on Director Bedard to introduce today's budget session. Director Bedard.
Thank you, Chair Garwood, and good evening, Council. Welcome to episode 2 of budget season 2025. This evening's agenda has been set aside for Council to hear from the Township service partners with respect to the 2025 budget and any proposed program changes or service level enhancements. Township service partners have each been allotted time to present their 2025 budget request and for Council to review and ask questions for clarification. In order of presentation on the agenda, tonight Council will hear from representatives from Georgian Bay Physician Recruitment, Barrie Area Physician Recruitment, Elmville Business Improvement Area, Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Association, Severn Sound Environmental Association, and Springwater Township Public Library. Lastly, I will provide an update with respect to policing services provided by the Ontario Provincial Police. Before we move into service partner presentations, I'd like to provide a high-level summary of the base budget impact relating to the township service partners. Overall, the base budget impact without program changes is an increase of approximately $658,000. To the average taxpayer with a home assessed at $497,000, this represents an annual increase in taxes payable of $72 or $6 per month. However, it is important to note that of this $72 annual increase to the average Springwater taxpayer, 87% of this, or $63 a year, is driven by the increased costs of policing the township. Therefore, removing the impact of policing, the annual base budget increase for township service partners presenting to you tonight is $9. In closing, I would like to remind Council that decisions are not being made tonight, and all service partner budgets will be referred to November 27th for Council's consideration and decision at the special meeting of Council at that time. With that, Chair Garwood, my introduction is complete, and I will turn the floor back over to you.
Thank you, Director Bedard, for that introduction. At this moment in time, we'll be moving forward with our service partner and board presentations. I would like to call forward Georgian Bay Physician Recruitment, Dr. Galiski, and Usman Chaudhry to make their presentation. Please come forward. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Coughlin, council members. Thank you very much for inviting us here today. Can you put up the agenda slide, please? Our next slide. Thank you. The purpose of the meeting today again is to introduce our recruitment program that we've worked on for the last year, some of our successes that we've had, the challenges that we continue to experience as a community in terms of physician recruitment, and obviously financial requests from the council. Just an overview of the team. Next slide, please. My name is Usman. I'm a healthcare talent acquisition strategist here at the Georgian Bay General Hospital. My colleague Jeff Galiski is here as well. Our chief of staff is Dr. Vikram Ralhan. And together we're focused on providing strong physician recruitment for this community. Next slide. I know in the past you've provided us with financial support. I wanted to mention that does go a long way in terms of securing physicians for various programs that we have in the hospital and the community, and ongoing physician recruitment efforts as well. I wanted to share some of the successes that we've had over the last year in terms of drawing physicians to our community. So far, we've drawn about 15 professional staff to date in 2024. We've had a few family physicians join our community as well, but we have a lot more work to do. Next slide, please. Again, based on the physicians that are retiring in this community, I almost feel like we need at least another 20 physicians to join us, given all the members of the community that don't have a family doctor. The latest stats say that again, 1 in 4 Ontarians will be without a family doctor by 2026. And that just tells me that we need to attract more family doctors to this community. I wanted to share some information about some of the other regions and what they're offering. The incentives they're offering range from like 20,000 to almost 150,000 in incentives, from relocation packages to housing support, to basically administrative support to open up a clinic. And that is pretty huge. Usually these include a return of service commitment for several years. And that's something that we're looking to do as well. Next slide, please.
Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you everyone for welcoming us back, and again for your support in the past and hopefully in the future. Again, my name is Jeff Gliski. I work in family medicine and emergency medicine in Midland. And again, this year I wanted to sort of share our short-term and long-term plans for physician recruitment in our northern area of your township, and our strategies for Georgian Bay General Hospital as well. Again, building on our strategy of recruitment through education, we've grown and expanded our commitment to teaching, primarily with the Northern Ontario School of Medicine and with the University of Toronto. One exciting new update with U of T, we will be doubling our teaching capacity for family medicine residents starting in this July. With the support of Dr. Murdoch. I think he usually comes to talk to us from the Barrie recruitment group. So really working on our education pipeline of family doctors that we really want to recruit to stay in our community. Lots of extra clinical rotations for learners from the other schools as well. And partnering with our physicians in the community already to really strengthen and ensure that we retain them, and retention's been another big focus going forward. Again, other strengthening and partnership relationships with our regional stakeholders, with all of our surrounding municipalities as well. And I think bringing USMIN on board to our program recently will really allow us to go that extra step in allowing any of our potential physician candidates to discover what we have in our community in North Simcoe. And we want physicians, family physicians specific, to move here and set up practice and stay for their careers here. Next slide there, please. We recognize that clinical space is often a challenge for new family physicians setting up, and I'm well aware of the opportunities in specifically in Elmvale as well that we've had some discussions on in the past. So I think there's some opportunities for us to continue to work together, especially for that the northern part of Springwater. We're looking at in our program in general about how can we better support our community physicians as well, in terms of different incentives to ensure that they set up a sustainable practice and ensure that we're able to continue with our succession planning for our existing physicians as well. Next slide, please. We had a lot of support from our hospital, Georgian Bay General Hospital, with our community physicians about how can we make our area more attractive to the limited pool of new graduates that are taking on comprehensive family medicine. And a couple of ideas that came up were supporting a locum program. So a locum is a doctor that kind of fills in for our colleagues when they want to take some time off, whether it's a week or two vacation or a longer sabbatical for other reasons. So we're really looking into how can we put this into practice locally to ensure that we have a pool of physicians that's happy and wants to work and stay and live in our community for a long time. Next slide, please. Want to take this one?
Yeah,
Sure, yeah.
sure. And just to add to what Jeff was saying earlier, I really believe that, you have to see it to believe it. And I think with locum physicians, the point is to kind of bring them up to the community, get them to experience the community for a short period of time, and hopefully convince them to kind of move here. Because if they don't even know what it is, they'll never come. But if they start sort of experiencing it step by step, we've found that they're more likely to stay here long term, right? And so, I guess the request here is $4,000 to maintain ongoing efforts and success, including the locum pool. We're asking for an additional $6,000 to strengthen locum support programs, because a lot of times we have to provide housing for some of these locums as well as clinical space. And our total request and our ask is $10,000. Next slide. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you very much for your time. Do you have any questions?
Thank you both for the presentation. We greatly appreciate it. Before we open the floor up to council, may I have a mover and seconder to receive the presentation from Georgian Bay Physician Recruitment? Councillor Fisher, Councillor Alexander, that the presentation from the Georgian Bay Physician Recruitment regarding the 2025 budget request be received, and that the 2025 Georgian Bay Physician Recruitment budget request in the amount of $4,000 be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Are there any questions or discussions related to this motion? Councillor Fisher?
Through the chair to CAO Schmidt, how many years have we been contributing to the Georgian Bay Physician Recruitment, to your knowledge?
CEO Schmidt?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Garwood, to Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fisher, great question. What I can say is at least since 2013, to my knowledge, and probably before that, but I can't comment prior to 2013.
Follow on, Councillor Fisher?
So over a decade anyway. And just to the presenters, have we seen any success over that, I'll call it a decade, in terms of recruiting anyone for the Springwater area?
Dr. Gillespie, Mr. Chaudhry?
Excellent question. I think our program does support both the community and Georgian Bay General Hospital. So I think the recruitment through the hospital has been quite successful. I must admit, I really don't think we have specifically recruited a community-based physician in the Springwater area. We came close recently, as you know, but yes, we haven't yet recruited a community-based physician for Springwater.
Follow on, Councillor Fisher?
Now, in some of my discussions with general practitioners and people in the medical community, and I certainly don't know much about it, but it seems to me that the compensation for somebody in a small community is, just when you add up expenses, is what I'm hearing correct? And is that one of your biggest obstacles to recruit somebody to, I'll call it a rural area? But
Dr. Gillespie, Mr. Chaudhry?
I think it's more of a systems problem like anything else. As you know, costs have gone up. So administrative costs have gone up, costs for EMRs have gone up, rent costs have gone up. So that is a big deterrent for a lot of new graduates. And that's why they prefer to work just in the hospital versus setting up their own family practice.
And I might add that agree. It is a lot of systemic challenges in opening up a practice as an individual would be very challenging. Having a kind of supported environment where we could recruit 2 or 3 physicians to work collaboratively would be ideal rather than a single physician on their own.
Anything further? I'll just make Counselor Fisher follow on.
Sorry. So I guess I would ask you your opinion if you can give it. Do you think ongoing efforts and contribution to this will eventually bear fruit for us, or will it simply, and this is not a bad thing necessarily, as you said, it's been good for the hospital, right? But I have to know, are we contributing from what you're saying to essentially benefit the hospital, but probably not going to bear fruit for us as a municipality? Is that a likely scenario? Because I'm sort of seeing it play out over the last decade.
Dr. Glisky?
I still think that there's a great opportunity in the north part of Springwater for community-based practice. I'm so hopeful, being realistic. The pool of comprehensive family physicians is small, but I still think that these efforts, we want to keep working to find the right group of physicians to work in the North Springwater area. So yes, I think we can keep doing both the hospital-based recruitment and recruitment for a community-based group of physicians.
Council, any further questions? Comments? I'll just make a comment. Thank you both for being here. This has been obviously a topic of deep conversation at this table over the last few years. I think in 2024, we made a lot of positive strides. We didn't quite cross the line, but we've gotten close. So I think that's definitely a positive, and I wanted to just thank you for the work that you continue to do. If there are no further questions, Councilor Alexander?
Thank you, Councillor Garwood, or Chair Garwood, sorry. So when you're speaking about the locum program and like filling on leave and stuff like that, if I'm going back many, many years, but I feel like this at one point, potentially, at least out in BC where I was from, was even just a way to get doctors into communities that maybe didn't have communities, or sorry, physicians, local physicians. Is there any way to kind of look at that when I'm looking at the Springwater Health Center? There's a space there, even if you're only having the ability to bring someone on for, say, like a 6-month trial period that they're not wanting to, like, just wondering if that is a possibility.
Dr. Glisky?
Sure. No, thank you. And that did come up in our discussions. This is a good way to get a new physician to a community to experience it without that long-term commitment. And I think that's what many of our young colleagues are concerned about is signing up, not knowing what they're signing up for and being there forever. But yes, having a locum with a defined period of work, I think is an excellent opportunity both for the community and for the potential new physician. Yeah.
Seeing no further questions, Council, would you like me to reread the motion? All those in favor? Carried. And we do have a second resolution. May I have a mover and seconder to receive the program change from Georgian Bay Physician Recruitment? Moved by Councillor Alexander, seconded by Councillor Moore, that the program change in the amount of $6,000 be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Are there any questions or discussions related to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Dr. Glisky. Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. At this time, we will invite the Barrie Area Physician Recruitment to come forward. I'd now like to call Dr. Murdaugh and Corrine Maxwell to make their presentation. Come on forward, no problem. Would you prefer that we wait? We can adjust the schedule.
I don't know, I can speak to Dr. Murdoch's notes.
Sure, absolutely. Grab a seat.
Yep.
Not a problem. And welcome.
Thank you
The
very
floor
much.
is yours.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for having me today. My name is Corrine Maxwell, and I'm the Physician Recruitment Coordinator for the Barrie Area Physician Recruitment Task Force. I, as a lifelong Innisfil resident and working in healthcare for the last 24 years, having enough family physicians and specialty physicians to support our community is very important to me. So joining me today would have been Dr. Stu Murdoch. Hopefully he arrives in the next few minutes. I think he's coming from clinic. However, I will give him the introduction. So Dr. Stu Murdoch is the Academic Chief of Family Medicine and Acting Vice Chair of Education and Scholarship, the program Postgraduate Education Program Director, and Associate Professor at the Department of Family and Community Medicine at the University of Toronto. So today we are going to give you an overview of what Barrie Area Physician, otherwise known as BAPR, is, and highlight some of our recent successes and identify some of our challenges. So next slide, please. So what is BAPR and who funds it? So the purpose of Barrie Area Physician Recruitment Task Force is to bring physicians, healthcare leaders, community leaders, and municipal leaders together to develop and implement strategies to recruit and retain physicians to the community. Using these strategies, the recruitment coordinator works on recruiting and retaining both family physicians and specialty physicians. So our funding partners include the Township of Springwater, the Township of Oro-Medonte, the Town of Innisfil, City of Barrie, and Royal Victoria Regional Health Centre. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, the province is facing a crisis with the current doctor shortage following the pandemic, specifically in family medicine. The slide shows 2.3 million Ontarians don't have a family doctor, but that was back in February. We're now at 2.5 million. And currently 40% of Ontario physicians are considering retirement. Next slide. So according to Health Force Ontario, more than 2,500 family physicians are needed in Ontario. Toronto has the largest number of openings at 305, followed by Ottawa with 171, and Barrie-Muskoka region with 118, followed by Hamilton at 114. Adding to this crisis is a clear trend in medical students not choosing family medicine. Next slide. So what are the factors that are affecting family medicine? Some of the factors include unfunded OHIP revenue, rising inflation, and the cost to run a practice. So that's the financial strain. Then there's the dwindling interest in family medicine. And if chosen, many of the residents continued on to do a third year of enhanced skills in something like emergency medicine, obstetrics, sports medicine, and other subspecialties. Aging population, the proportion of Ontario seniors, which are 65 plus, is projected to increase to 22.2%, or 20 million people by 2046. This is up from 14.7 million in 2022. The physician workforce is also aging. Seniors make up the fastest growing share of family doctors, with the percentage 65 and older more than doubling to 15% from 6.5% over the past 20 years. 1.7 million Ontario residents have a family doctor 65 years or older. And then there's the administrative burden. Family doctors report spending 19 hours a week on administrative tasks. 94% of them say they are overwhelmed with administrative work that takes up to 40% of their time every week. And this burden is already impacting patients' access to care, as some family members or family doctors have reduced their clinical hours. Next slide. Excuse me. So our local primary care within the Barrie Family Health Organization, which encompasses family physicians from across all four municipalities, include 94 signatory physicians, which is a drop from 104 last year, 34 contract locum physicians. We have 4 anticipated retirements by the end of 2025. And there are 147, 208 patients from our 4 municipalities that are rostered to the Barrie Family Health Team physicians. With the projected retirements, we can expect an additional 4,800 patients in need of a family doctor, and that's based on a roster size of about 1,200. Next slide, please. So the Barrie Family Health Organization, so this is what's happened kind of in the last year. We've had 5 physicians retiring with 4 with no roster transfer. One had a roster transfer to 4 existing signatory physicians. Next slide, please. So what have our successes been in the last year? And I missed updating that slide. I should have said 23, 24. I apologize. So in 2024, we've successfully recruited 5 family physicians to the area and 43 specialists to RVH. It's important to note that 32 of these 43 specialists are coming on as locums, and the 5 family physicians were also contractor locum physicians. So nobody has come on full-time. Next slide. The specialists that we have recruited, so I've listed them here. We've got 2 anesthesiologists, 2 emergency physicians, 2 family medicines that are working in GP oncology and GP anesthesia, 3 medical imaging, 1 interventional cardiologist, 1 endocrinologist, 1 geriatrician. Next slide. 6 hospitalists, 6 internal medicine, 6 general. Oh, sorry, that's the same. Sorry. 6 general internal medicine, 2 neurologists, 2 obstetrician gynecologists, 1 oncologist, 2 pediatricians, 1 pathologist, 1 psychiatrist, and 8 surgeons in ophthalmology, general surgery, surgical assistant, and orthognathic. Recruitment of specialists such as this has helped with the annual 206,000 imaging tests read by our radiologists, 82,000 emergency visits by our emergency physicians, and the 10,000 surgeries that are completed with our anesthesiologists. Next slide. So we continue to recruit. So I've got a list of the specialties that I'm currently recruiting, including family medicine. We've got advertisements across the board on all those positions. Next slide. So how do I recruit? I post advertisements on websites, medical journals, and social media. I screen the applicants, meet and greet candidates and applicants, arrange meet and greets with department chiefs and the Barrie Family Health Team, organize community tours, hospital tours, and clinic tours, act as a liaison with the community, hospital, medical practice, and the applicant, attend medical conferences and job fairs, maintain communication with each candidate to ensure appropriate follow-up, and always act as an ambassador to our community, the hospital, and the Barrie Family Health Team. Next slide, please. So our family medicine teaching unit, this year in 2024, we had a total of 7 graduates, and in July, we welcomed 9 new residents into the program. Next slide. Over the years, since the inception of the Barrie FMTU, we've had 125 residents through the program, 116 graduates, 69 have been recruited. Many have gone on to the PGY3 programs. Next slide. This is just a photo of our new residents that have come in this year. Our program continues to be the most sought after program in the province. And the application rates increasingly by 30% each year. Next slide. The Enhanced Skills Training in Emergency Medicine at the University of Toronto is a comprehensive 1-year program based in both academic and community teaching centers. It includes core rotations in emergency medicine, trauma, anesthesia, plastics, orthopedics, ICU, CCU, POCUS, and an elective. Academic days are on Tuesdays, feature case-based workshops, resident presentations, and grand rounds, while residents also engage in research projects, journal clubs, practice readiness sessions, and structured mock exam process. The program boasts a strong simulation component, integrating high-fidelity simulations and standardized patients to enhance both medical and crisis resource management skills, supported by instructors with advanced training in simulation and evidence-based teaching methods. Excitingly, Royal Victoria Regional Health Centre will be the first expansion site for this program, broadening its reach and impact to aid in recruitment as much needed emergency medicine physicians for the Simcoe County region. Next slide. The Ontario Health Team has also started a primary care council, which BAPR has partnered with, and we're going to be working together towards bringing in family our primary care to the community. Next slide. So the external environment. So this is where we run into some of the hurdles. So to tackle healthcare shortages and attract physicians, nearby municipalities and recruitment firms are stepping up with attractive financial incentives. These packages go beyond standard compensation, offering substantial signing bonuses, relocation allowances, clinic space, and other in-kind support such as gym, golf, and ski memberships, free car leases, and restaurant vouchers. The following few slides highlight some of the most recent news articles. So you can just flip through the next 2 slides. Just kind of highlights different things pulled from different news articles. And the next slide. And the next slide, please. So here's a bit of a summary of some of our nearby communities. So in Huntsville, that's kind of a big one on our radar. They're offering an 80,000 signing bonus, with multiple restaurants having offered $500 gift certificates for incoming doctors, car dealerships. And a resort has put up a free golf membership. The town of Wasaga Beach has offered new doctors a space in a medical building and $100,000 in incentives for up to 4 physicians spread over 4 years. Town of Blue Mountain has set aside $50,000 for physician recruitment in 2024. In Drayton, Ontario, they're offering $37,000 to help with relocation expenses. Next slide. In the municipality of Memora, doctors are being offered riverfront housing and clinic space at 0 cost. The list goes on and on. Peterborough, I guess they're implementing a new project that has a $580,000 budget that is multi-pronged pilot project for physician recruitment and retention. And Docs by the Bay in Trenton is offering $100,000 to new doctors or medical students interested in setting up a full-time family practice. Come on.
Welcome.
You're just in time. So at this time, I will wrap up our presentation with our financial request. Barrie Area Physician Recruitment kindly request the financial support in the amount of $8,000 from the Township of Springwater to help further our initiatives.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell, for the presentation, and welcome, Dr. Murdoch. Before we open up the floor for questions, may I have a mover and seconder to receive the presentation from the Barrie Area Physician Recruitment? Mayor Coughlin, Councillor Fisher, that the presentation from the Barrie Area Physician Recruitment regarding the 2025 budget request be received, and that the 2025 Barrie Area Physician Recruitment budget request in the amount of $8,000 be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Council, are there any questions or discussion from the floor? Councillor Thompson, then Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair Garwood, and through the chair to Ms. Maxwell. So it's interesting that we have 2 different physician recruitment organizations here tonight. And as I've over the last 2 years watched this, it seems like these recruitment organizations are competing against each other and are competing against different communities for a limited amount of physicians, because there doesn't seem to be enough to go around, right? So my question is so how do you 2 interact, and is there any collaboration? Do you work together in any way?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you asked that question. Usman and I actually just came back from a job fair in Vancouver, a family medicine forum, and we shared a recruitment booth along with our colleague from Aurelia. So we were recruiting because we were like on the other side of the country, we were recruiting to like Central Ontario, our 3 areas, excuse me, and we have a shared database with all the leads that we got. And when speaking with the different physicians there, you kind of got a feel of who might be looking more towards like Barrie or Innisfil or Georgian Bay. And so we kind of divided it up equally kind of amongst us. And then the ones that kind of fit in all three areas, we decided to send them an email and with all of our contacts as a follow-up as a group initiative.
Councillor Moore?
Did we talk about the education collaboration?
Nope.
So as I think you heard, we are opening a teaching unit in Midland, a teaching unit in Aurelia. And we'll be using Barrie as part of the hub. So between the three teaching units there, we'll be working collaboratively, and residents will be doing rotations in each community. And we know our best recruitment strategy is through education. And if we train them, they will stay. So we are going to make sure that they have more exposure to our whole community. And we want the whole region to strive, to thrive. And it's finding the right fit specifically for a family doctor in the right community. And people will change their minds for many reasons. And also finding the specialist for the right community as well.
Thank you for that. Councillor Moore?
Through you, Chair, to Dr. Murdoch. And thank you both for coming. And, I sit on the committee with you both, and it's always a great education when I'm there. I think what to be really proud of is these incentive programs that they are throwing around and publicizing. And I think that your position on these incentive programs has been really remarkable and admirable. So maybe you could speak to that, Dr. Murdoch, on how you have managed to get this far without, going down that rabbit hole.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Moore. So with regards to incentives and part of the presentation where small communities are offering $80,000, $100,000 for a return of service, we know the data will not keep that physician in that community. And so we really work hard to make sure that, people are coming for the right community to live and to work. But we've never seen this number so high before. In the previous years, we would pay for sometimes moving costs, and even that we've tried to limit as much as possible. But I think we're at probably the all-time crisis with 10% of people not having a family physician across the province, and the retirement baby boomers with big numbers. I'm hoping we can continue to minimize not to use incentives, but I think we're going to have to add something minimal, but there's no way we will compete, and we want to compete with the bigger numbers that are coming.
Follow on, Councillor Moore?
Thank you. And seeing that Georgian Bay Physician Recruitment has asked for a substantial increase in their budget ask this year, was there consideration for a greater ask from yourselves this year?
The ask for BAPR across all our partners had been cut in half over the last several years when times were good. And we think this is our last year of a good time. And next year, because of the change in the costs that our budget ask will probably have to go back to the original.
Follow on, Councillor Moore?
Thank you very much. So I would propose an amendment to this, or at least a consideration that we equal up the contributions to yourselves and to Georgian Bay General, or their physician recruitment. So from the 8, it would be to 10,000 to keep it even. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. You've tabled an amendment. Can I get a seconder on that amendment? Councillor Alexander? Any further discussion? Councillor Fisher?
It seems to me when I see both presentations, it seems to me that although we put money in, it benefits sort of the family health teams, whether it's in Collingwood or whether it's here at Royal Vic. Is it, and through the chair to the presenters, would it maybe is it maybe a better use of resources to focus on where your wins have already been? It seems to me that most of your recruitment is with Royal Victoria, rather than in the future looking to, as much as I'd like to have a physician in Elmvale, are your resources better spent making it more regional than localized?
Dr. Murdoch, Ms. Maxwell?
So good question. In terms of regionalized, as you know, RVH is a regional center. So the specialist care covers the entire community, specifically our cancer center and some of our subspecialty surgery. So the specific specialty recruitment will be based on what services are at the hospital, and RVH has the bigger piece being a regional center. In terms of regionalizing family medicine care, one of the problems can be because there are so many different family medicine opportunities in terms of family health teams and partnerships that we've kind of kept it more regional or more localized. But at the same time, the collaboration between the physician recruiters is quite constant, and they do share opportunities when people want to look at different areas, or they're thinking, maybe we're looking at this part, but I want to look maybe in Collingwood or towards Midland. So it's a tough one. The other problem is you regionalize it, it becomes bigger, and sometimes execution gets more difficult.
Anything further, council, on the amendment? Okay, so I'm just going to work with the clerk here on reading this so that the motion now before council be amended as follows: to strike out the budget request amount of $8,000 and replace this with $10,000. I have a mover and seconder. All those in favor? That has been carried. Now moving back to the main motion, that the presentation from the Barrie Area Physician Recruitment regarding the 2025 budget request be amended, that the 2025 Barrie Area Physician Recruitment budget request in the amount of $10,000 be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you both for being here this evening.
Thank you again.
Continuing forward, I would now like to call the Elmvale Business Improvement Area, the BIA, to come forward. Chair Graveson to present on behalf of the Elmvale BIA. I will note, as noted in the agenda, it does speak to myself also presenting this matter, but because I'm chairing, I will not be presenting. So Chair Graveson, over to you.
Thank you for having me. Good evening. We'll start with our presentation. So I remind you, I have a bit of a cold, sorry. Elmvale BIA, I've been the president chair for my first year, actually. Obviously we all volunteer our time to improve businesses and bring them all together in the community, along with Jason, Sue, Jody, Brenda, Todd, Al, and then Council Garwood. We can go ahead there. We don't even have to look at the next one. Everyone knows what the BIA is and what it stands for. We can skip on to our mission. So obviously our goal here is we're an organization funded by all of the business owners, property owners, and businesses, and our goal is to improve businesses in Elmvale. We do a lot of special events, attractions, advertising, marketing with our budget to try and attract people. We can go on to the next one. This is kind of just a breakdown of our social media and how many people we actually reach, how many followers we have on various platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's where we put all our local events that are happening. We keep track of that on a regular basis. Brenda does a very good job of that for us. We can move on again. Again, that's just a breakdown of how many people on different visits on different platforms. So you guys don't need to see all those numbers. Next page. This will show our social media. So obviously we go across newspapers, the internet, radio, magazines. We're in the Springwater News a lot, letting everyone know what's going on, what's come up in the past and such forth. We can go past that again. I don't even know what that page is. I'm sorry.
I can speak to this page specifically,
perfect.
Chair Graveson. So this really just speaks to the investment that the BIA has made continuously in our online platform. We understand that we can only reach so many people physically in person, and a lot of our small businesses in the Elmvale community definitely rely on us having that online presence, understanding a lot maybe don't have the resources themselves to have those online environments. The Elmvale BIA website does proudly interact with all of our businesses. We have a business directory on there, also linking out to the Springwater Municipal Business Directory that already exists, and the BIA works consistently mainly through member Stanley, who really just puts a lot of effort into ensuring that our businesses are supported, especially online. As Chair Graveson has noted in the previous slide, the online interaction that the BIA has seen, especially recently, has been actually pretty incredible for our small little community.
The next slide, we can go on to our farmers market. This particular area has a few of our hearts for sure. We decided to keep the Elmvale Farmers Market going, so it was presented by all of us at the BIA. One of the interesting things was our times. We decided to do this from 5 to 8, and the community asked us to do it from 4 to 8. So that was something in the first week. It did attract a lot of people. The time change was a lot more successful for visitors.
Yeah, and I
Councilor
can.
Garwood might want to speak on this one a little bit.
I can add to that as well. We saw over the summer a significant increase as time went along. We found the challenge at times of making a significant change in time and date. Of course, for 14 years, the market ran at the same time. So this was a big change for the community. One that by the end of the summer, we kept hearing how pleased our vendors were. We had dates in August that were arguably the busiest we've ever seen at the farmers market, which was quite exciting. So that change definitely helped. The Elmvale BIA has also, I'm excited to share, has put forth the intention to run the market once again in 2025. It is a big undertaking for a small team, but also understanding it significantly supports not only our Queen Street businesses, but businesses in Elmvale and Springwater as a whole, and has been an avenue for many of our community members and groups to get to participate in something close to home. So we saw a lot of that through various different partnerships this year. And we've actually seen recently an uptick, a couple new businesses open up on Queen Street and the Elmvale community as a whole that are quite excited about getting involved with the farmers market. We have some other positive changes coming as well, like extending the hours even further, having live music. So we're growing, which is quite exciting. And I personally would like to thank the BIA. It has been a ton of work for the group, but very, very well worthy cause. And again, we're seeing the benefits now with increased activity on our main street and the businesses wanting to get involved and get excited about that. So the market is alive and well.
Yeah, it was definitely a struggle. Everyone had their opinions. Why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing it that way? We kind of took that into consideration, and people have come to meetings and said, okay, well, why don't we do this next year? But the main thing is we've actually had people come forward to say, I'd like to help, which is what we need is help. So it was growing pains for sure. Next slide, Music in the Park. We always run that through July through August. It's very nice. We get a lot of attraction from that actually on the corner. It runs from like 1 to 3, I believe. Yes, every Saturday. That again attracted a lot of people. We heard a lot of good positives from that. Next slide is our veterans banners, which everybody loves. There's a lot of hard work that goes into this, collecting these photos from various locations, the Elmvale Legion initially, but I know you want to speak a little bit on that too.
I do. Thank you, Chair. I would also like to specifically thank staff, understanding that this is a significant partnership with municipal staff, BIA, and the Ellenvale Legion. It doesn't happen if one of those three groups doesn't participate. This has been an incredibly important initiative over the past 5 years. The BIA has consistently been eager and excited to continue this project forward. And it's pretty incredible, no matter what time of year it is, whether it's Remembrance Day banners or it's, the other banners that we have up, families of loved ones standing in front of them and commemorating those that have served and sacrificed within our community. So understanding we're actually, I believe we've honored about 160 or so servicemen and women from throughout Springwater. And I believe we are almost another year or two, we'll be through the list that the Legion has provided, and then we'll be looking at receiving some names from the community, which is quite exciting. These individuals are residents from across the municipality, not just Elmvale, and it's a very important initiative. So again, I wanted to thank everyone that's a part of it.
Yeah, we do get some requests that are sent in the odd time saying, hey, can you put our family members? But unfortunately, there's not a lot of pictures that are available. So that becomes very hard. So sticking with the list that we have right now at the Legion that we have pictures for makes it more successful. So we can go on to the next one. We could probably skip the next one, actually. This just basically talks about who we're honoring and how many there were, kind of what Councilor Garwood just spoke of. The next slide is about our Bell Media. So Elmvale BIA partnered up with 104.1 to bring advertising to entice people to come and shop in our area. So basically us businesses, I shouldn't say us, all the businesses that were part of this, what they do is the Elmvale BIA helps to support them by contributing a little bit of money, and then the businesses put that together so that we can launch different holiday season, summer stuff, just to promote and let everybody know about our farmers market and our music in the park, and obviously the banners and stuff. So that's what we do with Bell Media. That went over pretty well. And the final slide, actually, next one. So this is a new one for us this year. This is going to be our Christmas night market. So on November 28th to 29th from 5 to 9. There's a bunch of businesses that have decided to partner together and create like our own little night market in town. So various businesses will stay. Everyone's agreed to stay open till 9 o'clock. That's going to be part of it. There's going to be a little map. Basically, you're going to have like a little stamp card. You're going to go from various places and get a stamp so that you can participate in some draws. They'll be great. So there'll be live music, there'll be food, there'll be drinks, as well as we're asking everyone to help contribute so we can donate to the Elmvale District Food Bank. So everyone should pop by and see that. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Graveson, for that presentation. May I have a mover and seconder to receive the update from the Elmvale BIA? Mayor Coughlin and Councillor Fisher, that the presentation from the Elmvale Business Improvement Area regarding the 2025 budget be received. Are there questions or discussions related to this motion? Councillor Alexander.
I don't have a question. I just have a quick comment, given that most of my ward gravitates to Elmvale, if you will, because they go to school there, play sports there, all of that piece. The two initiatives that you've done this year that I've heard a lot about. One, I have heard a lot of very positive feedback about the farmers market in the evening, that people who worked during the day previously couldn't make it, and they were so I heard a really lot of positive feedback about that, and very happy that it was so successful. And then the upcoming Christmas market, I know a ton of people that are talking about it, going groups of women, making it a night out. Not that the men can't come as well, but I think it's a great idea. So congratulations on both of those particular events.
Thank you.
Councillor Fisher.
I really just comment as well. Actually, I was going to say more than a handful of times I heard on 104.1. Actually, as I was driving to work, Of course, when I hear Elmville, rings a bell, right? So it caught my attention. But I mean, I know for me, being in Springwater, it sort of reminded me of things going on. So I hope it was successful for you. It certainly grabbed my attention on my commute. My other maybe question, maybe I'd direct this to Councillor/Chair Garwood today. The banners, first off, they look great, and we're actually acquiring some in Midhurst. But is it the Springwater who hangs them for you, or does the BIA take that on themselves?
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. I could defer this over to Director Culver, but it is my understanding that it is municipal staff that does so, but I will pass your question over to Director Culver to speak to that.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. Up until recently, yes, it's been township staff that have hung the banners. We've identified some health and safety concerns, so we've been moving to a contracted model to try and make things safer for staff. So yes, but it is managed and administrated by township staff.
Follow on, Councillor Fisher.
Sorry, it's a bit unrelated to the BIA, but so in the future, we're looking to contract out the hanging of banners?
Director Culver.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yes, it's simply given the number of times the banners need to change, the time of year that it happens, the location of the banners. It's just deemed unsafe for staff to climb a ladder to do this, and the foul weather times. So we found contractors who are going to be managing it from a bucket.
Anything further, Councillor Fisher?
Yeah. Have we received a quote on what it would cost for that to be done? Just so I know for my own area, that's why I'm asking.
Director Culver.
Thank you, Chair. As it's really recent, I don't have a quote off the top of my head. I know that some providers have been contacted, and we're kind of working through it in real time. If you'd like to, I can work with you offline to provide you with that information, though.
Seems like that's sufficient. Thank you, Director Culver. And I will speak to the fact, again, not necessarily directly related to the BIA, but other banner initiatives as well. Understanding the BIA does support the Elmville Minor Hockey banners during our Hockeyville initiative or EMHA's Hockeyville initiative. The hanging baskets that the municipality has taken on in years past. So lots of beautification on the streets of Elmville. So Chair Graveson, was there anything further that you wanted to add from a BIA perspective?
Thank you very much for letting me present today, and have a good night.
Thank you, Chair, for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you. I should call the vote. That would be helpful. That the presentation from the Elmville Business Improvement Area regarding the 2025 budget request be received. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. All right, moving along to our folks at the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. CAO Hevner sends his regrets. I will now call Cheryl Flanagan and MVCA Board Chair Gail Little to make their presentations. Welcome. Good evening. Welcome.
So good evening, Chair Garwood, Mayor Coughlin, and Council. Thank you for letting us be here tonight. As you mentioned, our CAO is currently in the hospital. He's recovering from some COVID complications, so he does send his regrets. Unfortunately, he's missed a number of these, so our chair has kindly come with me.
Not quite the same, but you know.
So hopefully if you have any questions for me at the end, I'll hopefully be able to answer them. But if not, I'll definitely make sure that I take them back to staff and get you back some answers. So to get started, the first slide, so next slide, please. This is just a quick reminder of the NVCA and Springwater. Our jurisdiction for the planning component is 100% of the jurisdiction. For the rest, we do work very closely with Severn Sound Environmental Association to make sure there's no overlap in duties. And we've talked about that a lot. So if there are questions at the end, I'll happily answer them. Next slide, please. So attached in the draft budget is the 2025 program overview. It's something we started back when the ministry was doing a review of the Conservation Authorities Act to help the ministry better understand specifically what the NVCA does, because every CA has slightly different intricacies and different programs that are offered based on the watershed that they serve. Excuse me, when this was created, it was received very positively by our member municipalities. So it's something that we've continued to do every year. And it's a great tool for you as council to see all of our successes and all the hard work that we've done in the previous year, and then some of the challenges that we have upcoming. So next slide, please. I'm just going to speak briefly to some of the different departments that we have. I'm not going to read all of this. This is all part of the program overview, but it does give you a really kind of quick overview of all of the things that our different departments do. Our watershed science is a very important department as it deals with the science behind what we do. So they go out and they're monitoring our streams and our rivers. They're doing the source water protection, risk management official for some of the delegated municipalities. I know Springwater is not one of them, but we do have some municipalities that delegate the work to us. Next slide, please. So our education department continues to be an extremely successful department. In fact, this year, in 2024, we had Camp Tiffin again this year, and we expanded it, and we still had a wait list. We've seen over 11,000 students up until the end of September, so that doesn't include anything that's happening in the fall term. We've instituted some new programs. We are looking at some French programs. We've also filed a notice of intent to be a private school to be able to do a specific type of forest school curriculum. So that's also in the works. So it's been a really exciting time, and we know that a lot of students from Springwater do attend. So we're excited about where that department is going. Next slide, please. Our Stewardship and Restoration Services department continues to be extremely successful. You might know Manager Fred Dobbs. He is our Manager of Stewardship Services. Everybody seems to know who he is. He's been with us for 30 years. He's retiring at the end of December, but he is leaving behind some great shoes to fill. He does an incredible job of taking $1 of levy and turning it into $6 every year, whether it's through private grants, provincial, federal, other NGOs, and he does some incredible work throughout the watershed with his team through community tree plants. We're currently doing a big project with Napoleon in Oro-Medonte on the river, I believe it's Willow Creek in that area. And so he continues to do projects all throughout our watershed. Next slide, please. Forestry. You might remember a couple of years ago me saying that our Manager of Forestry had planted over 1 million trees in his tenure with the NVCA. He is not retiring yet, but he has been with us for a long time. And in this year, we did plant almost 75,000 trees across the watershed, which did create approximately 38 hectares of new forest, 1 kilometer of windbreaks, and we protected 3 kilometers of streams with some permanent tree cover. Next slide, please. Flood management. Flood is one of our more important from a mandated perspective departments. We're there to make sure that we're monitoring the levels of water in our streams and our rivers to see if there is a risk of flood. And you can see through this where the different monitoring that we do low water, ice conditions, etc. And then we also make sure that we're out there letting our municipalities know if there is a potential for a flood. Next slide. So planning and development is another one of our mandated programs. You can see, again, we've done a lot of hard work. One of the things that we're really, really proud of, and it really shows the hard work of our team with the addition of the 2 new staff from last year is that prior to April 1st, we were at 92% of all permits being out within their legislated timeline. As of April 1st, we're now at 100% getting out the door. So we're really proud of that. We've done an incredible job in our planning department. We have noticed a bit of a backlog now in our engineering department when they're doing the review, and that does come as part of our budget ask. We are looking to hire one additional person there to help with that in 2025. And then again, I know that Mayor Coughlin always asks, so I made sure it was part of the slide. In the first 3 quarters of 2024, the cost of the 71 regulatory applications that were applied for in Springwater was approximately $51,000. Next slide, please. So our conservation lands, we continue to have all of our lands and conservation areas open to the public. We've done some improved infrastructure at some of our CAs, including Fort Willow. We ensure that we continue to have continued safe access. We have also installed the initial phase of a self-guided interactive tour at Fort Willow. And we are in the process of, we did complete the development of the NVCA's watershed-based resource management plan that's going to our board. There were a number of plans that the province has required us to complete by the end of 2024 with regards to the Conservation Authorities Act review. And so they're going to our board in November. Next slide, please. So this slide, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. It's based off of our draft 2025 budget numbers, and it just shows you how much levy goes to each of the different departments. And as you can see, as is standard for or for most conservation authorities, the majority goes to corporate services and governance, as we're not money makers. And then as little as in our environmental education, where they get less than 0.5% of the levy. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick slide to explain how our process works. It doesn't really change year over year with the exception of election years. Staff go to the board at our August board meeting with a budget guideline ask. And this year, staff requested a $200,000 increase to our operational levy, and then an additional $200,000 for 2 new staff. One I mentioned in our engineering department already, and one in our flood forecasting and warning. That one is because of 2 reasons. One, climate change is causing more frequent storms. And secondly, our infrastructure. So our dams, our dikes, our weirs, they're aging, and there's a lot more work that needs to be completed on them. And it is mandatory work by the ministry. So we need some assistance. We've had 1 person in this department for, I'm going to say, over 20 years. With an engineer that kind of assists when needed. So she's done a great job, but we're kind of at that point where we need to add a second body into it. That request was approved, and we brought forward a draft budget at our September meeting, and the board approved the draft budget for circulation to the municipalities for the 30-day consultation period. MVCA does recognize that 30 days can be a little quick, especially for some of our rural municipalities. So we tend to give as close to 60 days as we can. And I believe this Friday is the last day for comments. Next slide, please. So just a quick reminder, when you look at the MVCA's budget, it is a little different. This is the second year where we've had to break out our budget between category 1 and categories 2 and 3. You'll also see that we still keep one combined budget at the end of the budget booklet, just for the ease of being able to look year over year. I'm not going to go over any of it, but if there are questions, if you can't remember what the different categories are, please let me know and I'll fill you back in. Next slide, please. So this slide just shows how we leverage your funds. So we do take a municipal investment of what we're asking for this year is just under 3.6 million. And we double that through the small, tiny provincial grant that we get for flood forecasting, any federal grants that we apply for and get, any other types of grants that we get through private or other NGOs, as well as our user fees, for a total budget investment of just under $7 million. Next slide, please. So this shows our total budget. So this is inclusive of both categories 1 and categories 2 and 3. the impact to our residents within our watershed. So what we've done is we've taken the impact number that we were given with the number of residents within our watershed, took the levy, divided it by that, and it works out to be $17.09 per resident. And then we've broken it down by the departments so you can see it as well. Next slide, please. So this slide just breaks down that $17.91 and takes it down into what is category 1. So category 1 makes up $15.42 of that $17.91 within our watershed, with the departments again listed there. Next slide, please. And this is the big spender. This is our category 3. You can see it's $1.68 out of our $17.91. I do want to thank the Township of Springwater with your support through the cost apportioning agreement of our category 3. That is appreciated, and that $1.68 does go a long way from each resident. Next slide, please. So Springwater's portion of the operating budget as requested, category 1, we are asking for just over $250,000, and categories 2, 3, we're asking for just under $28,000, for a total ask of $278,117. Next slide, please. And then we also have our asset management. You may remember about 8 years ago, we started our asset management plan, and it's just to help us have some contributions each year to our assets to make sure that we have the funds to do the important work and necessary work that needs to be completed. So for category 1, Springwater's contribution for 2025, the ask is $13,660. And for categories 3, it's $2,357 for a total of just over $16,000. We have some pretty hefty capital projects for 2025. As I mentioned previously, there's some major work that needs to be done at some of our dams. We are estimating this total work that we're anticipating to do over the next 5 to 7 years is going to cost about $1 million. So that'll be funded partly between reserves as well as the asset management levy. And then we also have the standard computer replacements that have to happen every year. And then we have a couple of vehicles. We were able to not have to replace very many vehicles during COVID because they weren't being used. However, we've also found that since they sat for so long, that wasn't good for them either. We're getting as much time out of them as we can, but we're starting to have to replace some of them as well. Next slide, please. So this last slide just puts our total request from the township for 2025 is $294,134. I believe that's the last slide. The next slide says if there's any questions. Unfortunately for now, you'll have to send them to me. I am acting CAO, so please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions for the next little while. And before I turn it over, I just wanted to say a special thank you to Councillor Fisher for sitting on our board. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, Ms. Flanagan and Chair Little, for the presentation. Before I open up the floor for members of council to ask questions, I may have a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. Councillor Fisher and Councillor Moore, that the presentation from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority regarding the 2025 budget request be received, and that the 2025 NVCA operating levy request in the amount of $278,117, representing Springwater's share, be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Council, the floor is open for any questions. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. For the chair, to the acting CEO, thank you for coming. Was sad to hear that CEO Hebner's in hospital. Certainly, if he's watching, wish him a speedy recovery. Was also sad to hear that Fred Dobbs is retiring. I've had some interaction with him the last couple of years, and I agree there will be very big shoes to fill, and hopefully that takes place. Just a question I had. This wouldn't be news to you that some of our residents have had some difficulty with the NVCA, and it seems that their tentacles are ever expanding in our community. And just a question, you had kind of announced a new initiative here tonight. I think it was the private forestry school. So will it be user fee funded? Will it be tax-based funded, or will it be accommodation? Will it be like one of the category 3 programs?
Acting CEO Flanagan.
Thank you. And through Chair Garwood to Councillor Thompson, that's a great question. Education is a Category 3 program, period. So any initiatives that we do through that is considered Category 3. We have, like you saw, very little levy goes into our education program. That is mostly utilized for any administration work that the manager has to do. And then we try to get user fees to pay for the majority of the work. So it would be the schools would pay a fee similar to what they do now with school field trips. Whether we're going there or they're coming to us, it would be the same kind of concept. If you don't mind, I have the Director of Conservation Services right behind me. I'm just going to double check and make sure I'm accurate with that.
Please,
Come on up.
please come forward. Just, yes, so folks on online can also hear the microphone.
So
Absolutely.
just so you know, with us, I did bring the Director of Conservation Services, Kyra Howes, and Chris Hibbard, who is our Director of Watershed Management Services, because I knew there might be questions I might not be able to answer because as acting CAO, I'm not CAO. So 1 second.
Please come forward.
Thank you, through the chair. Good question, Councillor Thompson. So the structure of the forest school, it's actually more kind of like almost like a daycare system based in a forest environment. So it's not necessarily based to bring schools for this particular program, but more as a way to engage the littles to the almost not so littles. So from 2 to 5, 2.5 years to 10 years old. So a little bit of a different structure. We try to rein them in when they're young and then hang on to them.
Follow on, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you again, through the chair to the acting CEO. I read with interest this past week that Oro has opted out of Category 3, 2 and 3 on their budget. And I'm just wondering, is that going to affect our levy at all? And if we decide to stay in?
Acting CEO Flanagan.
Thank you. And through the Chair Garwood to Councillor Thompson, that is a great question. One I kind of anticipated would probably come up. So we've been in negotiations with the Township of Oro-Medonte all year. What they have currently decided at this point is to opt out in 2024. We're still in negotiations for 2025 and forward. So short answer is no, this will not impact your levy. We did speak to our board when we were doing our 2024 budget, and again when we were doing our 2025 budget, because we don't know where Oro-Medonte has been, that if we did have any deficit from them, we'd had use reserves to cover it until we figured out exactly what was happening with Oro-Medonte. And then at that point, we have to have discussions internally and with our board to make some decisions on how we would move forward for those lost revenues.
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Acting CAO Flanagan. I wonder if you could just for the public explain how the new proposed hire in engineering would benefit sort of efficiencies within the NVCA and translate, for people with permitting, which is always a topic of discussion. Could you just elaborate on that for us so people know?
Acting CEO Flanagan.
Thank you. And through Chair Garwood to Councillor Fisher, thank you. You're right. I didn't really elaborate on that very much. So as you may be aware, there's a lot of big projects that are coming into the NVCA watershed. There was the recent announcement of the Honda expansion. There's a lot big projects that are currently happening within Collingwood, Wasaga Beach, and those projects are really driving a lot of time to go towards engineering review. And as such, we've noticed that there is a bit of a leg that's coming down and hitting some of the smaller permitting, some of the other smaller planning files. So what we're looking to do is hire a 1-year contract engineering technologist to come in and assist to be able to make sure that we don't continue to have that backlog as we move through some of these bigger projects.
Follow on, Councillor Fisher.
Just a point, because I do sit on the NVCA. We're almost victims of our own success and growth in the area, and I think that often translates into backlogs. It's something we've discussed at length in our NVCA meetings. So it's one thing as I've listened, it makes a lot of sense to me, but I think that people need to know it's growth within our municipality and the surrounding area, all the way down at the Honda plant being one of the largest ones. So these are things that have sort of become pressures, right? So it's something I just wanted to have it expanded on. So thank you.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. So just off of Councillor Fisher's comment, because I don't think I caught it in the presentation. So is the hire a one-year contract versus a full-time position at this moment?
Acting CEO Flanagan.
Thank you. And through Chair Garwood to Councillor Alexander, yes, the flood forecasting position would be a permanent full-time position, and the engineering position is currently a one-year contract.
Well, I see no hands. I'm going to ask a question. So looking at slide number 9 in the presentation, it speaks to the 2024 accomplishments, indicating that mid-year reporting spoke to prior to April, it was at 92%, post-April 1, that's now at 100%. Just for the public understanding, again, as members of council, we receive these questions and sometimes concerns. Can you speak to what those provincial timelines and regulations are? Again, I know we've had these conversations for 2 years now. Now this is the 3rd year, but personally, I myself also sometimes forget. So I think that will be helpful.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. And you'll notice that Director Hibbard made his way up. I am not familiar with the timelines. Again, I'm normally the Director of Corporate Services. So with your blessing, I'd like to invite him to speak quickly.
Please.
I can move. As of April 1st, there was prior to April 1st, there's always timelines, but this has been put into legislation. So 21 days to determine if a application is deemed complete. It's during that time period, you can say, you can ask an applicant for specific studies or requirements or clarification they need to submit to make it complete. Once it's deemed complete, we have 90 days to process and provide a permit. So we're tracking that, and that's some of the things that our acting CEO mentioned, but we're also doing another thing too. We're tracking when it's actually in our office. So there's times when in a permit process, you'll provide comments, then those comments go out to the applicant and then waiting for them to resubmit. It's almost like a stop clock sort of thing. When's it been in our office? When are we waiting for things back? So we're trying to give multiple things. What's the legislation ask us to do, but what is actually in our office? Where are there efficiencies? Where is there opportunities to make the process even quicker?
Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that. Council, anything further? Councillor Thompson.
So thank you, Chair Garwood. So I'm not sure who could answer this question, but just most organizations like yours would have a process for a leadership review from time to time. Can you explain that process for the NBCA, whether it's annually, every 6 years, or does the board have a process in place for that?
Acting CEO Flanagan.
Thank you. And through Chair Garwood to Councillor Thompson, you're speaking about the CAO position. Okay. So the CAO does have annual reviews with our chair, reviewed by our board every year. So that's completed annually. Are you talking about succession planning as well? We don't really have much in the way of succession planning for a CAO. We usually recruit, and then if the CAO is going to be off for an extended vacation or normally illnesses of shortened times, he would name an acting CAO. So I was named acting CAO. Unfortunately, this is going on a little longer than we had all hoped.
I would just want to add, we do run a very lean organization, which is why in the past couple of years, we've had to actually beef it up a bit. So we've tried always to be very lean. And maybe we have to start to expand our horizons a little bit, but we have such competency in all of our staff that we've found that we're able to have them step up to the plate when necessary and take on some additional roles and fill in those gaps that come up. So far, we've managed quite well. And, we are looking ahead. We have worked on some strategic ideas for the future so that to ensure that we do provide that educated staff that will fill those jobs as they become available. But we will continue to be a lean organization as much as we can.
And I'll also add to that Chair Little and myself have had a few conversations about the what ifs, like if this goes on past a certain amount of time, or if CAO Hebner, God forbid, doesn't come back or whatever. We've started those conversations already. We're not waiting on the sidelines. So we are thinking ahead. We just don't really have any plans that can be announced yet.
Seeing no hands, I'm going to pose another question as well. On slide 17 of the presentation, it speaks to the 2025 draft budget categories 2 and 3. And it also speaks to the price per watershed resident. Sometimes, of course, I think I've heard from residents in regards to, well, what does that actually mean? What is the physical dollar amount? So again, then looking at the category 1 costs, obviously, and then the category 2 and 3, two and 3 equal roughly, let's say $28,000. Does the NVCA, and apologies if you do, and I've just have missed it somewhere, provide a breakdown by dollar amount, not per watershed resident, but by dollar amount, what that $28,000 exactly adds up to? So for instance, if education was one of the categories, is education 4,000 of that 28,000? Is conservation land 6,000 of that 28,000? If you know what I mean. Acting CEO.
Thank you, and through Chair Garwood to yourself. I can do it. If I had a calculator in front of me, I'd do it really quickly for you. What I can do is I'll go back and I'll get it, I'll email it to the clerk tomorrow and get that out to council, but I can definitely break that down by department. It does vary year over year. Obviously, if our stewardship and restoration team knows they're going to be a lot more successful, they may not need quite as much levy one year, so maybe less, or vice versa. So it does vary year over year, but I can give you what 2025 numbers would be.
I would appreciate that, and I think that might be helpful for other members as well in conversation. Again, understanding where this is coming from. Of course, our residents have been faced with a 14% tax increase. That is significant for any household, of course. And when we're looking at the overall $41,000 increase over 2024, again, that is significant when it comes to the finances of our residents. So anyway, I appreciate that. I think that also helps this council make decisions moving forward. Enough for me. Council, was there any other comments or questions in regards to the MVCA's presentation from Chair Little and Acting CEO Flanagan? Seeing none, council, do you need me to reread the motion? All those in favor? And that has passed. Thank you both for being here this evening.
Thank you very much for the opportunity for us to come and present to you.
Oh, I apologies. There is one more MVCA motion. My apologies. I was getting ahead of myself. Flip the page, right? Yeah, you can tell this is my first time doing this. Anyway, okay, so may I have a mover and seconder regarding the 2025 NVCA asset management levy? Moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by Councillor Moore, that the 2025 MVCA asset management levy request in the amount of $16,017, requesting Springwater's share, be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Council, was there any further questions on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you both. At this moment in time, before we move on to the Severn Sound Environmental Association, we are going to take a quick 10-minute break. So if we can return, please, by 6:40, that would be appreciated. Thank you. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we.
Friends in the library, they just did an online auction for that. $3,500.
39.
39.
Yeah. I know.
My
Could have
trip
had.
with fish sold, somebody actually bought it.
We
I'm
did.
as shocked as you. Yeah. Really?
Yeah, I explained to, the winner of the fish that we had just put the gold paper behind it. Cause you had it mounted on, cardboard, and I said, it didn't differentiate with the camera. But I said, if you have questions, to contact you, since you've got a phone, about hanging it, but I said, I thought.
There's a wire.
Just attached to the cardboard just for stability sake. So,
I'll show you. Not that I'm allowed to bring out my phone. No.
yes, you have to go get something to drink and. I'm weary, but I know, why should I be?
It's all underwater. I'm gonna take that.
That is good.
Try it out. Yeah. He wandered around Georgian Bay and just picked up. And it's, interesting, it's similar to ways of.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We're going to continue on with the rest of our evening. We do have a slight adjustment in the schedule. We will be moving forward to item 4.7, which is the Springwater Township Public Library. And then after the Springwater Public Library, we will go back to item 4.6, which is the Severn Sound Environmental Association. The library's finance chair, Evan Chen, sends his regrets. I would now like to call on CEO Jody Player Delgado, Chair Adrian Graham, and Vice Chair Jane Cocking to make their presentation. Please join me at the microphone. Welcome.
So, good evening to Mayor Coughlin online, members of council, township staff, and members of the public. We're happy to be here tonight to present the Springwater Township Public Library's budget estimates for 2025. I'm Adrian Graham, Chair of the Library Board. Beside me is Jody Delgado, our CEO. Also joining us this evening is Jane Cocking, our Vice Chair and Finance Committee member. Next slide, please. So our strategic plan committee and our board have worked hard on our 2025-2030 strategic plan throughout the year. We had 852 responses to our community survey, which indicate our community is overwhelmingly happy with the direction our board and library have taken. The largest requests were for more books, more space, and increased hours of operation. Our mission is connecting minds and creating futures. While our vision states, Springwater Township Public Library embraces curiosity, inspires creativity, and is where ideas flourish and connections are made. Our state-of-the-art facilities embrace inclusiveness and diversity and are welcoming for all. We have 4 strategic priorities to work on during the next 5 years. They are: number 1, infrastructure and facilities. This includes the community hub, enriching our library facilities, and making responsible decisions regarding all of our branches. Number 2, responsible governance and fiscal responsibility. The board is committed to being accountable and transparent, ensuring staff are safe and recognized, and working with all levels of government and our new union partners. Number 3, connection to community. This includes supporting equity, inclusion, and diversity, and working with the community for programs and outreach. And number 4, planning for and managing growth. We need to attract and train excellent staff, be environmentally sustainable, and evolve and grow while maintaining our neighborhood atmosphere. Next slide, please. In 2024, the Ontario Library Service has implemented the Valuing Ontario Libraries Toolkit to help determine how libraries benefit our communities. They worked with the Nordic Institute and multiple libraries to create the calculation in 7 key domains. Those are education, culture, inclusion and well-being, entertainment and leisure, economic development, civic engagement, and space. Data was utilized from the annual survey of public libraries administered by the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Gaming, as well as our library management system. The toolkit adjusts the calculations for each library depending on population and proximity to urban centers to ensure that the results are valid. Next slide, please. The Valuing Ontario Libraries Toolkit, also known as VOLT, uses social return on investment, which is a way of calculating the dollar value of goods and services offered free of charge. This is done by applying a comparative market value, or what would be charged in the private sector. As you can see, our library offers excellent value for our residents. For every dollar given to the library through our municipal grant, $6.64 in total social return on investment is added to the community. When we look at this per household, $798.70 is generated, and each hour the library is open provides an impact of $370.50. Next slide, please. When we look at the VOLT numbers and then at our accomplishments, it's no surprise that the library generates such a high social return on investment. This year, we've been very busy behind the scenes as we've developed and approved our strategic plan and implemented online registration, which has been very popular with our patrons. The community has greatly benefited from our Period Positivity Grant, and we've been invited to speak at the Ontario Library Association Super Conference about that project. The board has also been asked to speak at the conference on good governance, and our CEO will be presenting at a library conference in May on dyslexia programs in libraries. Adding to greater awareness of our library, we were profiled by the Centre of Equitable Library Access in their national newsletter. Jane will now continue to let you know more about our accomplishments this year.
Thank you, Adrian. Good evening, everyone. We're always happy to share how our library is growing and how Springwater residents are making use of our facilities, both in person and digital. All numbers you're seeing are from the end of September.
Yeah, next slide.
So sorry. We've circulated 65,000 physical items. These include books on CD, DVDs, Blu-rays, video games, and kits. 7,257 people have attended our in-person programs, and 497 people have walked through our doors. Our summer reading program is even higher than last year's numbers, with 508 children reading for a total of 245,171 minutes. That's an increase of 25% of children signing up, and 89.5%, so 90% of parents agreed that our summer reading program helped their children continue to read over the summer months. We signed up 623 new members, which is 23% more new members compared to this time last year. We provide access to computers and internet, and our Wi-Fi use continues to grow, with 55,042 hits in our branches and the parking lots. Next slide, please. The Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Gaming provides comparators for library using population data. We are in the 15,000 to 29,999 group. When looking at our neighboring libraries and others in our comparator group, we see that our total operating revenues do not compare. It should be noted that both Clearview and the Blue Mountains are in the comparator group below us. King Township and Clearview both have 3 branches, same as Springwater. The Blue Mountains has 2, and the remaining libraries shown here only have 1 branch. Next slide, please. Looking at that same comparator group, our operating expenses per capita are lower. This demonstrates that we make good use of the limited funds we have. Even Clearview, which had a comparable budget, has higher operating expenses per capita. According to the 2023 BMA study, not only is Springwater among the lowest of the comparator group, funding for the library is also below the average and the median numbers. Next slide, please. One of the most pressing problems STPL is facing is outdated technology. Previously, we have received new to us computers from the County of Simcoe. This year, we were informed that this practice was discontinued. Our staff and public computers are over 10 years old and will not accept future Microsoft updates. License fees for our databases and software necessary for providing our services and information to the public have increased due to inflation. We also have increased legal fees, which were never budgeted before. These issues are the reasons for the increase in our estimates over last year. I'm now going to pass it to Jody, who will bring this home. Thank you.
Next slide, please. This year, our budget estimates are $1,103,808 for our total budget, which requires $982,729 for the municipal grant for operations. This is an increase of under 4% from 2024. The total amount will be $1,087,558 for the municipal portion, with the addition of our 2 program changes, the community librarian and additional hours to better serve our residents. We have not added salary projections to this budget as we are currently undergoing collective bargaining. When the collective agreement is ratified, the board will approach council at that time if there are salary increases. Next slide, please. Participants in a community survey asked for outreach programs, more community partnerships, and pop-up libraries throughout the township. We are unable to build on these services with our existing staff. Community librarians are not new in the library world, and many libraries our size have a community librarian or outreach librarian, including Midland, Collingwood, and Wasaga Beach. The community librarian is responsible for engaging with the community, building new partnerships, providing and increasing our outreach programming, analyzing community data, and more. The Masters of Library Science degree provides both the theoretical background and skills necessary for this position, especially as library schools now have programming on community librarianship. This position is an essential piece of our strategic plan, Priority 3, Connection to Community. Next slide, please. And as you can see, STPL has fewer full-time staff than our comparison libraries. Staff are required to wear many hats, and we are not able to provide the high service level our residents expect. More full-time staff would allow more consistency across branches, more programming, and better communication within the community. This is especially important in the build-up to the new community hub, which will require more staff. Next slide, please. The greatest barrier to access noted by respondents in our community survey was our library's hours. Currently, Monday, we are open from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., whereas Tuesday through Saturday, we open at 10 a.m. This inconsistency has proven problematic to our residents who continually ask us to open earlier on Mondays. Next slide, please. Midhurst and Elmville branches are open 42 hours a week. This is much lower compared to our neighbors who are open much longer and provides a disservice to our patrons who cannot physically access the library. The community hub will also require longer hours, and if we slowly increase our hours in the intervening years, it will be less of a jump when the hub opens. And back to Adrian, please, for our final comments. Next slide.
Next slide, please. So our library is dedicated to providing a place for information and resources and cultural and community engagement for everyone in Springwater. For example, our accessible summer reading program helped a family with a nonverbal child participate in an American Sign Language activity. The residents of Sarah Vista appreciate our Teens Christmas card program, and patrons use the library's computers daily to access email and government programs. Our operating budget estimates allow us to maintain this service, and the community librarian and additional hours will support us in reaching more of our residents. Thank you for your time and considerations. We are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair Graham, Vice Chair Cocking, and CEO Delgado for the presentation. Before I open the floor up for questions, may I have a mover and seconder to receive the presentation from the Springwater Public Library? Councillor Fisher, Councillor Thompson. That the presentation from the Springwater Public Library regarding the 2025 budget request be received, and that the 2025 library operating budget request and the net amount of $982,729 be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Are there any questions or discussions related to this motion? Councillor Fisher.
I'm through you to the presenters, whoever would like to answer. The $26,764 allotted for expanding the hours of operation. What does that consist of? Is it mainly salaries expense, or how would yeah? Can you tell us about that? And also, right now, when you have staff members on, how many staff members on average per hour do you have?
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. Just wanted to provide one clarification to council. So we will have 3 motions on this matter. The first motion will be just related to the operating budget. The second motion will be the community librarian. And then the third motion will be the additional hours. Happy to open the floor for conversation, but just to be aware, we are right now only voting on the operating budget request to refer that to the 27th. Over to either the chair or the vice chair or CEO Delgado.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Fisher. That number is for salaries only. So we would have 3 hours at Elmville, 3 hours at Midhurst. Both of those would require 2 staff members. So 6 hours worth total for each branch, so 12 hours altogether. Currently, we have 2 minimum at Elmville and Midhurst, menacing we only have 1 person. We do have our specialized staff on. So that would be myself, our children's librarian, acquisitions, communications, etc. And we sometimes have an additional staff member when we're doing special programs or on days that we are particularly busy.
Follow on, Councillor Fisher.
In your eyes, would it be possible to sort of manage staff effectively so that you have different coverage throughout the day, so you can have staff members on into the evenings and bring that expense down?
CEO Delgado.
Thank you, Chair Garwood, and through you to Councillor Fisher and all of council. With the current requirements of our staff, that would be very hard to do because they are all having specific duties when they are on. So to remove them from those duties or to leave empty coverage, for example, on the days when we only have 2, we cannot remove them from those times because we need to have 2 for safety issues and also for customer service.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. Okay, I have a couple questions. First off, congratulations on the increase in the summer reading program. It's a great program. It's amazing to see that many more kids are reading during the summer. So job very well done. So yeah, bear with me as I go through my questions. First one, the new to us computers with the County of Simcoe. Is there a particular reason that they've decided not to do this? Because that's a bit disappointing in my mind. You clearly you shouldn't be working off of 10-year-old computers. So just the reasoning why.
CEO Delgado.
Thank you. And through Chair Garwood to Councillor Alexander and all of council. Yes, we have been very lucky in the past that the majority of our computers have been provided by the County of Simcoe. And they are new to us. They are the refurbished models that after they go through what they need with their stuff, we get them. So when we get them, they're usually around 5 or 6 years old to begin with, but it has been a great cost saving measure for us. Unfortunately, due to COVID, I believe they all switched to laptops. And so therefore, they no longer have computers and laptops don't hold up as long, so they're not refurbishing them to give to us. They said we might be able to maybe get one to get us through next year. And that's it. We need approximately 14 computers to be new computers.
Councillor Alexander.
Okay, so sorry. And just because this was a part of the budget increase, right? Do you have an estimated number of computers that you'd like, just so we understand?
CEO Delgado.
Well, we need 14 new computers to replace the staff and the public desktops. Luckily, our laptops that we got, I believe it was last year, have been doing double duty right now and working for staff computers as well, and our staff ones that are not working so well. We have asked, but that would probably bring us 5 computers for our increase. And then we're hoping to get 1 or 2 more computers through the Friends Group with their wonderful silent auction that just finished, and it was very successful for them. And then we will update the most needed computers then, and then try to make it into 2026 and update the rest of them then. We also didn't want to update all of them all at once, because then we get into this problem every 5 years when they all need to be updated instead of staggering it to make it much more cost effective.
Councillor Alexander.
Sorry, thank you. Okay, great, thank you. And I agree with you. You can't, at a certain time, you do need to refurbish your computers, or they just they're no longer effective. With respect to the salary increase, I understand you're in collective bargaining. So do you have like estimated increase in there that you think maybe, or is it going to all come like you're just banking on nothing, and then you're not banking on nothing, but it's at a nothing, and then when the process continues, then you'll come back with the full ask?
CEO Delgado.
As we're in collective bargaining, that is not a question that actually can be answered right now in open session, unfortunately.
So maybe I'll rephrase, and if you can't answer it, that's fine, but maybe it was the way like, I'm certainly not looking for a dollar amount, anything like that. I 100% understand. I'm just wondering if there is any piece in the budget that you've thrown in 1%, 2%, again, not looking for a percentage, but if you have put in your best estimate of what it's going to be, or if it's just going to be a full extra ask.
CEO Delgado.
Right now, our budget is pretty much without that, but we can't say anything more.
Sorry, last one.
Councilor Alexander.
And we've talked about this in previous years, and I know you guys run a lot of amazing programs. And just if you are continuing to work with Director Culver and stuff, because I do know the township and the library sometimes overlap in their programming, to make sure that, we're working together, because we want to offer the great programs, but not to be overlapping them or essentially competing with each other. So have you, continue to work out to reach out to staff and Director Culver's team in terms of the programming that you provide?
CEO and our chair and vice chair.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. Yes, we have reached out, and I believe there's been at least one, if not more, conversations with our children's librarian and your supervisor of recreation. We did work with them on March break programming and are planning that again for 2025. And also, we are very happy that we collaborated with them, and their camp children came over to the library during their camp session. So that was a great way that we could expand their camp and have the children come in too. So we're hoping to have many more collaborations in the future.
Councilor Fisher.
Just to go back to the expanded hours, and the reason I'm going back to it, I actually believe that it's nice for families, actually, particularly in the evenings when you get parents coming home late, to have library time. And I think when you compare it on your slide there to our sort of, call it market area, right? I know for myself, the kids are at home, later in the evenings when my wife and I get home. But I'm with the salaries expense just going, we don't really know what the hourly rate would be right now. So that's a bit of a guesstimate, I think, right? The 23,000, if it's purely salaries or hourly expenses, it's just sort of an estimate right now of the workforce, right?
CEO Delgado.
That is what we have with our current salaries.
Follow on, Councilor Fisher.
So it should be similar, or would we see an increase? Just so we know. I know it's hard for you to answer. Yeah,
I think that's
sorry.
the magic
Yeah.
question, Councilor
Yeah.
Fisher. Not to answer for our board, but again, I think it's, from what I understand and from what I read, it's at today's rate. And of course, what happens in the coming months, similar to Councilor Alexander's question, if I'm not misunderstood, is to be determined. But CEO Delgado.
Yeah, through you,
Chair Graham.
Mayor. Yeah, as they say in the TV shows, asked and answered. That's, yeah.
Councilor Thompson.
Just through the chair, just to remind everybody that last year and previous years, library staff got the COLA that inside staff got. And so it was mirrored. This year, we don't have that luxury because of the introduction of the union. So we knew that introducing the union was going to add cost to our township or a reduction of services. So we'll have to address that problem here in this council when and if that occurs. And as CAO Delgado has said, she is in collective bargaining right now. She hasn't even been able to share with the board that information because it's confidential. And we're hoping with a quick, reasonable resolution very soon that will benefit all of our residents who love our library and want more hours and more investment into our library services. We hope that we'll have an answer for you very soon.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Anything further on this specific motion, again, specifically related to the operating budget? Seeing none, again, there will still be opportunity with the following two motions, so I will reread the motion that the presentation from the Springwater Public Library regarding the 2025 budget request be received, and that the 2025 library operating budget request in the net amount of $182,729 be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Are there any further questions on this motion, Council? Councillor Fisher.
So sorry, just to ask, so the collective bargaining will likely not be done prior to the completion of this budget? Am I hearing this correctly?
That is my understanding, but Chair Graham?
That is correct.
Seeing no other questions on this specific motion, all those in favor? And that has carried. May I have a mover and seconder regarding the program change community librarian? Councillor Alexander, Councillor Thompson, that the program change community librarian in the amount of $78,065 be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Are there any questions from council at this time related to the community librarian program change? Seeing none at this time, all those in favor? And that has carried. And our final motion for the Springwater Public Library, may I have a mover and seconder regarding the program change additional hours? Moved by Mayor Coughlin, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the program change additional hours in the amount of $26,764 be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Are there questions or discussion related to this motion? Seeing none, I will just speak to it quickly as I've held back my comments. I'm in full support of this direction, similar to some of the other comments. I consistently hear from Elmville residents who want to get to the library, who might not have the schedule or the ability to do so. A lot of folks that are maybe on leave or at home with their children that want to get there earlier on in the day on a Monday. That's a huge thing. I recently, I like to tell this little story. I've told it 3 times this week, but I had a resident come up to me who had lived in Elmville, this person's entire life, and they had rarely used the library and brought their kid to the library and couldn't believe on the programming, the access, the community that space exemplified, and only had good things to say with what you and your team does consistently. So I know I've said this multiple times in multiple years and multiple budgets, but thank you, all 3 of you, and to your entire board. Council, any other comments or questions in regards to the additional hours program change for the Springwater Public Library? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Thompson.
Through the chair, I would just like to remind everybody that our library board are all volunteers. They're professionals in their own careers, but they've volunteered their time and their talents to make our community better, and I'd like to thank them. We've had a couple of difficult years. I propose that there's better days ahead. So we wish you all the best. And again, on behalf of taxpayers, I want to thank you for the great service that you're offering our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you, Chair Graham. Thank you, Vice Chair Cocking, and thank you, CEO Delgado, and other Springwater Public Library staff for being here this evening. So we will be taking a step backwards on the agenda, moving to item 4.6, and this will be the Severn Sound Environmental Association. Julie Cayley sends her regrets, and I'd now like to call SSCA Chair Stefan Walma forward to present. I also understand we have the SSCA Treasurer virtual should assistance be required. Welcome, Chair Walma.
It's different being on the bottom area. Mr. Chair, I think I saw our worship online, members of council. Thank you very much for having me today. As you heard, Julie sends her regrets. She's a little bit under the weather. But we do have our treasurer joining us, Judy Limoges, and if I can't answer any questions going through, maybe our vice chair, Councillor Alexander, will be able to give me a hand as well. So we do have a slide deck. You're going to get the the brief version versus the in-depth version. But we'll start off with the next slide, please. Okay, so we're looking right now at the watershed. Obviously, the red circle is the We Are Here portion of things. SSEA started in 1987. We were an area of concern. Georgian Bay was in a bad way. The SSEA RAP was formed. I don't remember what RAP stands for. And after a bunch of work, we actually delisted. We're one of the few areas in Georgian Bay or in the Great Lakes that delisted as an area of concern from the province. So in 2009, we formed this great partnership. It was 9 municipalities to start, where we all decided that we don't want to become an area of concern again. So we shook hands and formed the SSEA to continue water quality monitoring, natural heritage monitoring, and mapping throughout the watershed to make sure that we stay healthy and prosperous. Next slide. So further mapping just kind of shows how the watersheds work. You guys are in the amazing or not amazing, depending on your perspective, position of having more than one watershed in your municipality. The way it works is basically collection of water where water flows. So you guys in the north end of your municipality, the water flows from Orr Lake, the Wye River, back into the Severn Sound portion of Georgian Bay. Next slide. So these are highlights on some of the things that are happening here. We have our algae response and monitoring. As you were aware, Orr Lake had a blue-green algae bloom this past year. This is just simply tracking the number of sites that we're monitoring and the number of events that we have gone and done sampling for. We when we're doing these, we're in consultation with the MECP and the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit. We have our climate monitoring. There's 2 weather stations in the watershed, Midland and LaFontaine. Through an agreement or MOU, we also have access to the Simcoe County Federation of Agriculturers monitoring stations, and we use that data in just about everything. Stream sampling, there's 1 site in Springwater at the Wye River. When they talk about sampling events, we do our standard events to log continuous data, but we're also very interested in storm events, high water, floods, that kind of stuff, because you'll see a lot more nutrient runoff and kind of pinpoint where some of those problem areas could be. And stream temperature. We actually just bought some new equipment to check that too. And stream temperature is big for fish habitat and other wildlife quality in the streams. Next slide. Stream benthos. I had to ask about this one. I actually don't think I could give you a great answer as to what that is, but we do have 1 site in the Sturgeon River. And when we're looking for this, it's an early indicator of stressors in the community. Groundwater monitoring. So we have 2 sites where we're looking at the water levels specifically. And this is another one too, where we're looking at some of the heavy metals or chemicals in the water as well. We also have our citizen science program. This branches out into multiple fields. So we have our ice watchers. It's listed up there. I don't know why I read it to you, but we do coordinate with volunteers, train them, and use that data to help pinpoint some of those problem areas so that we can investigate with our own staff. Next slide. Oh, there's lots. Okay. Environment. Orr Lake. So part of the things that we've noticed with Orr Lake is low oxygen under ice found in 2023, which increases phosphorus trends and toxic and can contribute to the toxic algae blooms. One of the things that we are recommending is to transfer. Right now, we monitor Orr Lake on a 5-year cycle, and in all of Severn Sound, that's generally how the program has worked. Every 5 years, we'll come back and do a water quality sampling of those inland lakes. We are noticing an increase in toxic algal blooms. Tiny Township, we had our Farlane Lake had one last year as well. So we're looking to make this more of a regular thing and spread out that cost. So we're not increasing the cost. We're just looking at changing the so that it's every year we'll be billing that 5-year cost and doing some continuous monitoring along the way. And hopefully we'll be able to use some of that data to pinpoint where it's coming from. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do about a toxic bloom once it happens. We also have our climate monitoring. So changes in rainfall events and regional air temperature are concerning. Stream monitoring. So we talked about the different spots here. We have our Wye River. Let's go next slide. Stewardship programs. So these are all of the programs that we help coordinate. So Restore the Shore. There's 2 sites on Ore Lake that we've been working with. The concept here is naturalization of the shoreline. So with changes in storm events, we see a lot more erosion, that kind of stuff. So by naturalizing the shoreline, adding specific types of plants, stuff like that, we can stop erosion and help preserve that shoreline. Bee Parks and Project Seed. So we're working with Huronia Centennial Elementary School. We're in the planning stages here, and this is part of protecting pollinators. Our invasive species program, this is, I'll call it fairly new to the Severn Sound Environmental Association. It's been going on for about 6 years now. There's 11 sites we're monitoring in the township of Springwater, and we do work closely with staff and resident complaints to identify problem areas and follow up. Our tree programs, so there's 9 distribution participants. Last year we did 300 seedlings planted, and since 2010 we've planted 5,810 within the township of Springwater. Next slide. Education and outreach, this is an ongoing thing, so it's not just about what the township does. We got to educate our residents and how to preserve our environment as well. So we get to as many community events as possible. If we're not there, please invite us next time. We'd be happy to go. We can carry on from that. So education is an important part of our outreach program. Next slide. This is the only legislated component of what the SSEA offers any of our partnership. As I said at the beginning, this SSEA works on the principle that we all believe the environment's important, and we're trying to remain off that area of concern list by working together under an MOU. This is provincially legislated that we have to monitor areas around municipal wellheads. So anywhere you have municipal drinking water systems, there's a radius drawn around them, and in that area there's certain rules that have to be followed. We have our risk management official and investigator work with areas concerned in those circles, if you will, to make sure that we're all following the rules and staying out of hot water, if you will. Next slide. Sustainable Severn Sound. So Sustainable Severn Sound is, again, another newish program with the SSEA, and Springwater, I think, is one of the newest members to jump on the bandwagon. You guys are currently, the biggest portion of the portfolio that SSS offers is the Partners in Climate Protection Program, and this is a in-house focused program on mapping our GHG gas production through our fleet, our buildings, that kind of stuff, and then making a plan on how we can mitigate that. So staged or reduce those GHG numbers. So we're working with staff to get to milestone 2, which is establishing that reduction target. So find out what's feasible for Springwater to do to bring those numbers down. Next slide, please. Oh, good news story, and then we don't need to go back. Our staff member, John Main, has been very diligent looking for external funding, and he's netted each of the municipalities the $10,000 grant through Enbridge to work on those pieces. So it's a $12,000 cost to the municipality, but in having that, we've already leveraged $10,000 in free money to help continue that work. Value-added examples. So there's, I'm just going to list these because Julie will get mad if I miss one. Provide educational material for municipal mailouts. So anytime you guys are doing any kind of mailout system, reach out to us. We're happy to promote that educational piece to all the residents. Collaborate on grants. So there's sometimes we need to reach out to the municipalities for help in applying for our grants, and it'd be the same thing. If your municipality needs an environmental expert to sign off on why a grant is important for a municipality, we've done that for multiple partners in the past and continue to offer that service. Provide advice on municipal operations that impact the environment. You guys have multiple options with the NVCA being here. However, we do have expert staff that can offer advice, peer review documents, so that, well, it's a helpful thing moving forward. And then the data that we collect is obviously huge, and it dates back, going back to 1987, as we talked about. So you get to see that changes in what's happening in the environment, and sometimes you can figure out the whys, which is good as well. Next slide. Our work plan. So the big one, we're go back to our strategic plan from 2018 to 2023. We're undergoing a new strategic planning process right now. However, we're also playing around with curveballs being thrown at us. And I've wanted to say a big thank you to everyone on council and staff for working with us so far. And I'm saying this not only as the chair of SSCA, but also as a partner in Tiny Township. Everybody's under a lot of stress right now, budgets, that kind of stuff, but we appreciate you guys coming to the table for the treasurer function. I know it's a stressful challenge, and thank you. So as we're going to continue our monitoring, continue our stewardship. We're looking at expanding the bee parks and Project Seed into a lot of our schools, and the invasive species management training. Springwater does participate. We have an ongoing, it's every month or 2 months session with our invasive species coordinator to talk about best practices in the public works field. So, we get a lot of invasive species spread just because of equipment being used and not cleaned properly, etc. Next slide. Obviously, we're continuing with the drinking water source protection plans because we have to. And the climate action sustainability. So that's our PCP program, hopefully moving forward to achieve milestone 3 with Springwater in this year. Next slide. So the request of Springwater is total $113,637, which is a 2% over last year. Just so you are all on the same page, the change in our overall budget is 2.6%, but we have a funding model that's not as straightforward as that. So you guys are on the good end of that with only a 2% increase. We talked about the spreading out the Orr Lake water quality monitoring. So if you were to look at that number, it's an extra 1751 this year. However, the normal process would be $10,000 in 5 years from now. So we're splitting that up and putting it in over the year-over-year basis. And then our Sustainable Severn Sound project is at 12,914. I think that's the last slide. Oh, thank you. Questions, comments, sorry.
Thank you, Chair Walma. Before we open up the floor for questions, may I have a mover and seconder to receive the presentation from the Severn Sound Environmental Association? Councillor Alexander, Councillor Moore, that the presentation from the Severn Sound Environmental Association regarding the 2025 budget be received, and that the 2025 SSEA operating levy request in the amount of $98,972 representing Springwater share be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Again, just a reminder to council, this is one of 3 motions that we will be discussing this evening. Questions from the floor? Councillor Fisher.
Just a comment and maybe a question. First off, I like the Orr Lake monitoring. I know it's been problematic, but it's nice to know that it's being monitored. But I was wondering if you could expand upon one thing I found interesting, and I didn't know about it, the Enbridge grant for $10,000 per municipality. How many municipalities? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, I can tell you what I know, and then the person to talk to would obviously be John, and I'm happy to get him to follow up with an email to council. Basically, Enbridge has a sustainability branch, and we had all 8 municipalities applied for the grant, and I think we had 7 successfully receive the grant. One of them may have been partial. Basically, the money has to be used for expanding sustainability practices, whether that be, I don't know, charging stations, reports or studies on what kind of fleet vehicles we should be changing or can be changed to reduce GHGs, that kind of thing. So that's all I know about it.
Follow on, Councillor Fisher.
No, just it's impressive actually to look for money outside of the municipality, outside of tax dollars. So it's always nice to see.
Thank you, Council.
And we'll turn to Councillor Alexander.
I'll just make a quick comment. Thank you, Steph. Appreciate it. Coming here. So I do think, obviously, SSC does a lot of really good work, but in Springwater in specific, I do think the Ore Lake monitoring, it's been a huge issue the last 2 summers. And it's something we need to, I think, get more data on, educate the residents that live there on maybe things that they can do to help. So I think it's very important, and I'm very happy to see it kind of spread out versus like the lump sum. I think it's the much smarter way to do it, and to be able to continuously monitor the lake so we know where we're sitting for future decisions. So
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Through the chair to Chair Walma, thanks for coming. I know you understand budgetary pressures. You're probably experiencing that in your own community. Just a question I have about the budget. I noticed that you dipped into reserves this year to the amount of $55,000 to reduce the levy to townships. So going to your website, the last financial statement you have on there is 2022, and it shows a surplus or reserves of $870,000, which seems like a lot, $870,000 for the size of your budget. It seems like a lot to me. I know like you've dipped into reserves this year. Do you know what, I know you're here, I know the vice chair is here as well. Do you know what your reserves were at the end of 2023?
We actually do have, I'm hoping, our treasurer is with us here. Judy Limoges may be able to answer that question directly.
Treasurer Limoges.
Thank you, through the chair, to Councillor Thompson. We're forecasting at the end of 2024 a balance of 437,000 in our reserves. And a part of that is the reserves that belong to the municipalities for municipal drinking source water protection, about 153 of that. So of the reserves available to the board is 284,000, round numbers.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Just a follow-on question. Also, there was a lot of discussion when the last time CEO Kaylee was here regarding the MOU request, and it came out during that. There were some questions asked to her about your relationship with other townships, and subsequently new information came out came out in a Barrie Today article, one that Georgian Bay had given notice that they were
October 28th, they put we have a 2-year exit clause from the MOU. So they put in their 2 years, I think it was October 28th. So they are in for all of 2025. And then unless they have a change of heart, we would be dropping the MOU to 7 members as of 2026.
And from the comments also that Tay Township made in the Barrie Today article, it seemed like they're not happy and that they may be on the way out. So just wondering if you could give us some kind of idea as to the plan, if, once Georgian Bay goes out and if Tay goes out, how that will affect the remaining municipalities that are receive a tax levy for the organization. Is the plan to reduce the size of the organization or just redistribute the base budget?
Chair Walma.
Thank you. So we act as a board. Obviously, every partner in this organization has a say. You can only ask me my opinion. I can't tell you how it would go. Obviously, the water quality monitoring is probably one of the key components of the program that I would love to see continue in perpetuity. But obviously, if things change like that, we are dynamic in the sense that we would be able to scale, I guess, based on what our members want. Some of the programs are, I guess, newer, and they may be easier to let go, I guess, if you were having that conversation. I personally think that all of them are an important piece of the puzzle. And as Tiny Township's representative, I would be advocating for a redistribution. As you pulled it out, we do have a healthy reserve. So we would be looking at smoothing that out for our partners, at least in my opinion. So we definitely have the ability to make those transitions, and it would be a wholesome discussion. And the talk about Tay Township wanting to leave, I guess, is speculative. They have not made that comment to me or anybody else, other than that they're unhappy with some of the services they have. They'd like to see a more a la carte menu, I guess, for environmental protection. But under the MOU, that's not how it works. We did recently look at opening the discussion on our funding model and funding formula. And we haven't been able to get through that yet because other administrative issues have taken priority. So in the first quarter of 2025, we'll be looking at that the MOU, and it'll be a more fulsome discussion with all of our representatives, and we'll also be engaging the CAOs and mayors to make sure that everybody's engaged in the conversation.
Follow on, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you for that. Last follow on. So you probably weren't around when Aurelia left.
I was actually.
You were, okay. So there is a model in place. Can you share with us how that was handled? Whether it was the budget was reduced because Aurelia left, or was it just redistributed with the remaining municipality?
When Aurelia left, that was redistributed. Yeah, we and at that point too, we were not in a healthy way. Right now, like you said, we have a healthy amount in reserve. We've been building that reserve, and I would say responsibly. But when Aurelia left, we actually had a deficit. I think in 2015, when I got on the board, we were negative 300,000 and change, just so we're talking same numbers. We worked together to claw our way out of that deficit. Aurelia left partway through, but they still had to pay their portion of the deficit. And then we redistributed their costs. But again, Aurelia, each municipality has a different share and size. Aurelia was not a large partner based on geographics within the watershed. So they weren't contributing as much as Springwater, or say, for instance, Tiny Township is a 30% share of the organization kind of thing.
Councillor Alexander.
I'll just speak further to Chair Walma's comments to Councillor Thompson. Really, I think when we look at the reserves, and you did have the question because we do have healthy reserves, but that really has been a lot of discussion around our board table, is that is why we've tried to build them for the cases of if, Georgian Bay does decide to continue on and leave, then it does give us some wiggle room and we're not automatically passing it down. It's the transition of the finances, wonderful that Springwater has, agreed to move forward with that, but there's still going to be a significant cost to the board, like to the SSCA, to transition those finances. So continuing to have that reserve to be able to fall back on for your unexpected, if you will, things, so those monies aren't just automatically passed down to each member municipality in terms of a levy or whatever, is certainly how we've tried to plan fiscally responsibly moving forward.
Keep coming. I like the hard questions.
I'm going to jump in here. Mayor Coughlin, actually.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. My question is specific to the risk management officer, and maybe it's to CEO Schmidt or Steph Walma. The township doesn't utilize that for the SSCA. Is that something that we're paying for but not getting, or is that, I remember it was a separate line item years ago, but is it now part of the base? And if so, I would be of the mindset that we shouldn't be using the city of Barrie if we're already paying for it with SSCA.
Chair Walma.
I think this might be a two-parter. My understanding is that we are the authority that has jurisdiction over the area. You as a municipality have the ability to hire who your risk management official and investigator is. You have not chosen to utilize the risk management official that the Severn Sound Environmental Association has. So I don't believe that you're paying, that's like a fee for service component of things. And I see my treasurer nodding her head on the other screen. Thank you, Judy. But as far as the agreement with Barrie, I have no knowledge of that.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair Garwood, through you to Mayor Cogman. So I would echo Chair Wolmo's comments. To my knowledge, it is not a service that the township has engaged in with SSCA. We have utilized the services of the City of Barrie for the last number of years. And to my knowledge, we're not paying an additional fee to the SSCA for this service. It is something definitely we could consider and take a further look into, but at this stage, we do not use their services for this.
Mayor Coughlin, follow on.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. I just wasn't sure if it was part of the base package or if it was a fee for service. So that was it.
All right, now I'll jump in. So just reviewing your presentation and the supporting documents associated, understanding that the Springwater core municipal funding portion is the 98,000 and change. Can you just clarify for residents that might be inquiring, is the Orr Lake water quality monitoring for 1,700 and change and the sustainable Severn Sound project, the almost $13,000, are those optional items or are those built into the overall cost that Springwater will be taking on?
So those are optional items. So the the inland lake components are, you decide whether or not those inland lakes are monitored. And as far as the SSS, it's the same thing. So those are your a la carte components. The 98,000 is the core, which is bundled up in that MOU that we all signed in 2009. Judy, did I get that?
Getting a head nod, that's a yes. Thank you, Chair Walma. No, I appreciate that additional information. And, just going back to the conversation around the reserves, again, Chair, I know you're very much aware of budget constraints and concerns that residents have been sharing. It's no different in Tiny than it is in Springwater in that case. I do potentially, with all due respect, do have concern around consistently pulling from reserves. I see that as a bit of a Band-Aid solution for today and what happens in 10 years when those reserves are continuously depleted. Of course, I've wholeheartedly supported the SSCA. I am the alternate for the committee and think that they do great work. But again, do have concern if in 2022 those reserves were double what they were now, they are depleting. And I worry about where we are in 5 years. If another municipality does choose to pull out, that number could be a shock to Springwater moving forward. So I'm happy to support the SSCA, and I hope we continue to do so. But thought it was important to voice those concerns.
Absolutely, if I may respond.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we definitely take the use of reserves with caution as well. And I might get Judy to jump in, but I believe all of our use of reserves is for capital assets this go around, so it wouldn't be an ongoing expense. So next year, theoretically, we don't have to replace those again, and we're not looking at larger increases following. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair Walma. Council, was there anything further on this specific motion regarding the levy request in the amount of $98,972? Would you like me to read the motion again? All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to our next motion, may I have a mover and seconder regarding the SSCA Sustainable Severn Sound request for Springwater's share? Moved by Councillor Alexander, seconded by Councillor Moore, that the 2025 SSCA Severn Sound and Sustainable Severn Sound request in the amount of $12,914 plus HST non-recoverable portion representing Springwater's share be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Council? Treasurer Limoges?
Thank you, Chair Garwood. Just to clarify, Councillor Thompson's comment about the $800,000 reserve, I'm just pulled up the audited financial statements from 2022. And what the number you're referring to there is the accumulated surplus, which is made up of your assets, your reserves, your unrestricted surplus, and your amounts to be recovered in future years. Within that number, our reserves at that point in time were $409,000. So just to be clear, we did not, I knew we didn't have 800 and something thousand in reserves. So just just to clarify that. Thank you.
I didn't think so either, but I didn't know how to explain it.
Follow on, Councillor Thompson.
So, sorry, just help me with my lack of understanding here. How do you differentiate between accumulated surplus or reserves?
Treasurer Limoges.
Thank you. Through Chair Garwood to Councillor Thompson. The reserves make up part of your community or your accumulated surplus. Your tangible assets make up a part of it. And then there's an unrestricted surplus that is your deficit or surplus, depending on what you've done in each year. And then the amounts to be recovered in future years. And that would be your debt and or your, in our case, employee future benefits. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson, anything further? Nothing further. So just moving back to the motion, and I will reread it just to ensure that we're on track here, that the 2025 SSEA Sustainable Severance Zone request in the amount of $12,914 plus HST, non-recoverable portion representing Springwater's share, be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Council, is there anything further on this discussion or this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. And our final SSEA motion may have a mover and seconder regarding the SSEA Ore Lake Quality Monitoring Survey request for Springwater's share. Moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by Councillor Alexander, that the 2025 SSEA Ore Lake Quality Monitoring Survey request in the amount of $1,751 plus HST non-recoverable portion representing Springwater's share be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Council, are there any discussions or comments related to this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that motion has passed. Thank you, Chair Walma, for being here this evening and for making the trip in.
Appreciate your time, everybody. Best of luck in your deliberations.
Thank you. Continuing forward, Council, we will be moving now to item 4.8 on our agenda, which is policing services. I would now like to call on Director Bedard to provide an overview of the policing services operating budget. Director Bedard.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. I have a few brief comments with respect to the 2025 policing budget. As council is aware, there has been much concern raised lately by municipalities with respect to the 2025 billing invoices that we've received from the OPP. In 2025, it is anticipated that it will cost approximately $3 million to police the township. This represents an increase of $575,000 or 24% over last year to police the township. As noted earlier in tonight's meeting through my introduction, the increasing in OPP costs will make up 87% of the township's service partners base budget change. This change alone represents an increase in taxes payable of $63 a year for the average township taxpayer. Annual billing statement webinar sessions, which are held by the OPP to assist municipalities with understanding the billing model, had been scheduled to take place in late October. However, these sessions were canceled and have not been rescheduled at this time. As such, there's limited information available for me to share with council tonight. However, it's my understanding that information with respect to the OPP billing model will be forthcoming in the future, and we will report back to council at that time with more information as appropriate.
Thank you, Director Bedard. Before I open up for conversation, may I have a mover and seconder to receive this presentation regarding policing services operation budget? Moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by Councillor Moore, that the 2025 operating budget policing services in the amount of $2,998,731 be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration. Are there any questions or discussions relating to this motion? Councillor Fisher and then Councillor Thompson.
More of a comment, I think frustrations that I hear in the public and in the community with this, it's not so much the dollar figure, it's this, what is Springwater and our residents, whether you're in Elmvale or Midhurst, or what are we getting for this $3 million? So I've actually fielded multiple phone calls with people asking about that. And when I speak with people, it's actually not the dollar figure, it's the services we're receiving, right? I think that actually our residents, if we were spending $3 million, I don't think there's anybody who would say that policing is not important or we put it on the back burner. Policing is absolutely important. And with the growth that we're experiencing, it's becoming increasingly important to plan for the future. So it's actually less about the dollar figure and more about the services that we're receiving. So I think that that needs to be a conversation when we're engaging the OPP. I also think it has to be said, the $63 per average household, I go back again, it's based upon a $500,000 household. So on average, we're actually paying a lot more per household for policing. And I'm a big proponent of policing, but I believe that people in every ward want to know, what are we receiving for this? And I think proactive policing is something that we we want to see. I know in my ward, we're seeing break-ins into cars on a fairly regular basis. We're seeing speeding come through the area. So, these are becoming concerns. And what I consistently hear from people is we don't want police to show up after the incident, right? We want a police presence. And if we're spending $3 million a year, I think that that's not too much to ask from our OPP partners. So.
Councillor Thompson.
Through the chair to Director Bedard. So I think, if I'm correct, that when the OPP, when they presented their budget to ESSA Township, they actually came and did a presentation, and they presented kind of an a la carte menu to them, and there was some things that they were able to opt out of. So we haven't been offered that from the OPP, correct?
Director Bedard.
Thank you, Chair Garwood, and through you to Councillor Thompson. I'm not aware of that township's proceedings with the OPP. I'm not sure if another member of staff might be more knowledgeable, perhaps CEO Schmidt.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. Through you to members of council. So members of council, you may be aware that the model has changed with regards to the contract, if you will, or the non-contract that the township previously had with the OPP. And so under new legislation, essentially, there's a new police services board that's being created. And so there's a couple of members of council that do sit on that police services board. We just had our inaugural meeting a couple of weeks ago, I guess, within the last month. And I believe we're scheduled to meet again in early December. So I think, financials could be something that we could discuss with the detachment commander on a go-forward basis. My understanding of the police board is that we're supposed to have a little more control over the service that's currently being provided by the Huronia West OPP, whereas previously they would work with us, however, not necessarily obligated, if you will, to fulfill requests that we may have put in front of them. So what I mean by that is municipal bylaw or bylaw enforcement is one particular area whereby under the previous non-contract, essentially we would seek partnership with our OPP and ask them to assist us in bylaw enforcement related matters. They have on occasion helped us with that, but moving forward under this new police services board, we can again have further control and try to ensure that they assist us in those areas on a go-forward basis. I will note too, though, that the policing model, it is the financial model, if you will, was revamped, if you want to call it that. I believe it was in 2016-ish timeframe, 2016, 2017. Essentially, there's a 3 or 4 key, or actually 5 key components to it. There's a component that refers to the base service. So that's really based on the property or number of households within the township. So that cost per property Base service is about $189, just over $189 is what's proposed for 2025. Calls for service, so these are again calls that municipality or residents call the OPP to attend. That portion makes up about $111 of our cost per property. Then there's overtime and prisoner transportation, as well as accommodation and cleaning services. So the estimated cost in 2025 per property is actually $319. So just to be clear, the $63 that was mentioned earlier, I believe, is the increase that we're expecting per property, not that that's the full cost per property. So again, just to clarify on that piece. And then, of course, the other component that's in here is there was a year-end adjustment for 2023 that's built into the 2025 cost, which now equates to just under $3 million to the township. So maybe a little bit too much detail, but happy to answer any questions.
I believe I have Councillor Alexander, Councillor Fisher, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. So first off, I think to echo Councillor Fisher's comment is, I think the biggest thing we do here is the lack of OPP presence that we do see, not so much the cost. People don't necessarily want the cost going up. But in considering the area we're in, Wasaga Beach certainly seems to predominate where they are, just maybe by virtue of the township there, but it's very rarely are you seeing them in our neck of the woods. And so that's, very concerning. I also am wondering, because I recall, and I'm assuming it was at budget at least one of the past 2 years, of actually having a deputation from the OPP. So it's a bit disappointing considering the 24% increase that they didn't decide to bless us with their presence and potentially explain why. And then my next one is just a question which I'm pretty sure I know the answer to, but I think it's important that the public know the answer to, in that I don't really know if we have much of a decision on this number. And if so,
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair Garwood, through you to Councillor Alexander. So Councillor Alexander, you're correct. We've had deputations or we've requested OPP representatives that come and explain or walk through the financial model previously, and we can definitely do that again. Understanding, we've had, and Director Bedard can correct me here, but my understanding is most of our partners within Simcoe County, so not just in Huronia West OPP, which is Clearview, us, and Wasaga, everybody in Simcoe County seems to have had a 20 to 25% increase in their OPP costs for 2025. I will state that I attended a CAO meeting with county representatives on Friday, and there was some discussion about the possibility of some potential relief coming from the Solicitor General, although I'm not sure what that means dollars wise at this point. And just my last point, I guess I would say is I understand it's not about the dollars, it's about the value for service, if you will. My understanding is Wasaga Beach's cost that they pay is well over $5 million. So they do pay a substantial higher amount than Clearview and Springwater.
And just quickly speaking to that, on our November the 6th agenda, we did receive a resolution from the town of Wasaga Beach in regards to their OPP detachment billing increases. The concern that they had in the letter that they shared with the Solicitor General, potentially a recommendation, understanding it might not do anything, but it also could be an option for this council as well to jump on board with the town of Wasaga Beach in regards to sharing our concern with this increase. I do have Councillor Fisher, Councillor Moore, and then I have Mayor Coughlin.
Quick comment and a question. One, I'm on the OPP Services Board, and I'm hopeful that having a voice or voices from each of the townships will result in better policing and having a good relationship with the OPP. And then the question I had through you, Chair, to CAO Schmidt, you mentioned year-end adjustments, and am I to take that as we were billed for things like additional calls and then that was carried over? Maybe you could explain that. Maybe I'm wrong.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair Garwood, through you to Councillor Fisher. Councillor Fisher, I would have to dig into the year-end adjustment a little bit more, but it was not in our favor. So it was an additional $142,000 that's coming our way. So typically, I think what they do is they provide us an estimate, and then depending on where they come in at the end of the year, there's an adjustment, either positive or negative, for each municipality. This particular one, there was a $142,000 pickup, and I can try to dig into what that number equates to. I just don't have the details in front of me right now.
Follow on, Councillor Fisher.
Through you to CAO Schmidt, if you could dig into that, it would be interesting to see what that $142,000 consisted of, where the municipality had its, let's call it an overage, what it consisted of. I think it's also important for us because, you know, with a 25% increase, is it really more when we factor in year-end adjustments a year from now, right? Is this, it seems to me their budget's a bit of a loose estimate, which, you know, sometimes that is what it is. But I'd certainly like to know where that additional adjustment came from. I'm sure they could provide it.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you. So I would really, and I'd love to have the detachment commander that used to come to do the delegation. I would really encourage that person to come to speak to council. It's difficult to say to residents, there's a $575,000 increase and not know what it's for. You know, I am really hoping that it's paying for more officers for our area, but I can't say that because I don't know. So if we could make a phone call, we've got some time to have them come and do a presentation. I would really appreciate that.
Before I go to the Mayor Coughlin, Director Bedard, could you speak to the 575 increase in a percentage in regards to what that equates to in regards to the municipal portion of that increase? I think that's important as well for residents to understand that. I understand it's between 2% and 4%, somewhere in there. I'll let you speak to that. But that significantly is adding to a 14% increase that is coming forth to our residents that we do not have a say in. And it's no different than our conversations in the past in regards to the County of Simcoe and the increases that have come that way. Again, of course, we have representatives that have advocated for us at the county table, but once county council votes, they vote, and that is put on our taxpayers. So while it is a 14% proposed increase, there are significant dollars that we do not have a say to an extent in adjusting or amending. Director Bedard, the 575 in a percent in regards to the municipal portion, please.
Thank you, Chair Garwood, and through you to council. The 575,000 equates to approximately 3% township tax increase. So of the 14% tax increase before council today, roughly 11% of that relates to items under township control.
Thank you, Director Bedard. That's significant. Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to mention County Council had passed a resolution that's going to be shared with all of the councils asking for us to support it, similar to what Wasaga Beach put forward, but was drafted to come back to our table. And I think it's important to note too, there was a meeting scheduled for with OPP to help better understand this, and the meeting was canceled with very short notice. So I would echo Councillor Moore in inviting them to come explain it to us, but they don't seem to be very interested in talking to us about it.
CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. To Councillor Fisher's question about the 142 adjustment, Director Bedard forwarded me the info here. So what it amounts to is essentially in 2023, the township was billed just over $2.4 million for their services, and then their reconciliation came in at $2.6 million. So it's the differential between their actual and what they billed us. So I can provide that level of detail to you in a separate email, but that's essentially what the difference is just they estimated 2.469 and change, and they billed and their actuals came in at just over $2.6 million. Hence the differential. So they're picking it up.
Through the chair to CIO Schmidt, I wonder if we could find out what that roughly $200,000 difference was. Like why Was it operational costs? What made that go up from their original estimate to, I'd just be curious because I feel, and it would be interesting to know if this year-end adjustment, has this been consistent for 5+ years? Are we seeing this on a regular basis where it's being pulled forward? The reason I ask is, if it keeps growing and our budget keeps growing and thus the year-end adjustments, at what point, not too many years from now, are we going to see a $300,000-$400,000 year-end adjustment versus a $200,000, and that really starts to affect budget. So just really out of curiosity, really. So, thank you.
And just on to that, I completely agree. CEO Schmidt, it seems as if a motion's not required here to provide direction, but it seems as if council definitely would like to have the historical information in regards to those year-end adjustments and shared with all members of council, in addition to urging OPP staff strongly to grace us with their presence. Using Councillor Alexander's words, CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. So if I may, I would suggest that maybe council amend the resolution tonight and put a motion forward to have a request that a deputation or the representative from the OPP attend. As for the other information, we have it. We'll send it to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, CEO Schmidt. Moved by Councillor Alexander, seconded by Councillor Moore. That the motion now before council be amended as follows: to add that the Huronia West OPP Detachment Commander be requested to make a delegation to council regarding services provided to the Township of Springwater. Do we wish, CEO Schmidt?
Thank you, Chair Garwood. I would maybe suggest that enter their designate, because it may be an individual from OPP head office that may be able to provide more information on the financials. I'm not sure that the detachment commander would have all of that detail. So I would just say you may want to amend that. It's not just the detachment commander, it may be enter their designate or something along those lines.
Excellent. Inserting or their designate, mover and seconder, okay with that? Councillor Moore?
And when you've added what services provided and rationale for the 20% increase for this year. That's the topic of discussion.
I will reread the motion and then reconfirm that the motion now before council be amended as follows: to add that the Huronia West OPP Detachment Commander and their designate be requested to make a delegation to council regarding services provided and rationale for the 20% increase for 2025 to the Township of Springwater. Is 20% the correct? Is it 24%, Director Bedard? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Thank you, Chair Garwood. It's approximately 24%.
We will amend the amendment to say 24%. Council, do we need to read it again? Or are we okay? Okay, excellent. I have a mover and seconder. All those in favor? And that is passed. And now back to the main motion as amended. That the 2025 operating budget policing services in the amount of $2,998,731 be referred to the November 27th, 2024 budget session for further consideration, and that the Huronia West OPP Detachment Commander and or their designate be requested to make a delegation to council regarding services provided and rationale for the 24% increase for 2025 to the Township of Springwater. Moved by, I already have Councillor Fisher and Councillor Moore. All those in favor? And that has carried. And our confirmatory bylaw. May I have a mover and seconder for the confirmatory bylaw? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Fisher, that the bylaw 2024-092 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the special meeting held on November the 18th, 2024, listed herein, be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? And may I have a mover and seconder to adjourn the meeting? Counselor Alexander and Counselor Moore, that the special meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 8:07 PM to meet again in regular meeting on November the 20th, 2024 at 6:30 PM. All those in favor? Thank you very much and have a great night.